And we are live. Welcome to the NFL First Look Deeper Dive. It's everything at once, everything, everywhere, all at once for this NFL Week 2. Time to talk some football. It is Sunday, September 17th. I am Josh Engleman, here to start everybody off, prime everybody, get everybody fluffed up and ready to go for the Deeper Dive at 10. We're going to be here all the way until 1 p.m. You don't ever have to shut this stream off. Just leave it open. When I'm done, you'll get more. When they're done, you'll get even more. It'll take you all the way up until kickoff. It's going to be some fun, everybody. Hit that like button if you haven't done it yet. Subscribe to the channel. Hit the notification bell. Follow me on Twitter at Josh Engleman. Give a shout out to Owner's Box, the sponsor of this show. Trust me, we're going to touch on Owner's Box a little bit later. But first and foremost, hi, chat. What's going on? Good to see you guys. It's been a week since I talked to you about the NFL side of everything. Been deep in the baseball streets for the past week, but now it's time to talk a little NFL. I thought I was going to have it last week. Owner's Box was very, very good to me. Got to 10th. Wasn't the best stochastic finish, unfortunately for me. DeColts beat me out. Shout out to Steve Buzzard. But we're going to be taking another shot at that one as well today. I've got my lineups locked and loaded. I've got a giant crunch run with what I have for the DraftKings side of everything today. Lots to talk about on that end. But we only have 27 minutes to go before I got to get out of here. So I guess I should probably just get into it, huh? Normally I like to sit here, get everybody in the door, say a bunch of dumb shit, kill some time. I don't have time for that. Sometimes on Sundays, I just have to be ultra efficient. So I think we need to just do it. And we're going to dive into it right out of the gate on the running back side. And I'm going to try to be a little bit more focused this week than I was last week. Last week was hard, if I'm being honest with you guys. First week of the NFL season, I had to get back in the swing of things. I always have the NBA on the brain. It's been baseball, baseball, baseball for the past 3 or 4 months. But now I'm feeling pretty good. We're going to talk about the main running back plays to start. Call them the cash plays. I think that's the best way to look at it. But remember, just because someone is a cash play does not mean they're also not a GPP play. The best plays are the best plays in every format you can get to them. If they're heavily owned, what you do in GPPs around them is what is interesting. But let's remember very clearly, the best plays are the best plays always. And the highest owned guy right now that I think we're going to see, or the guy that I'm expecting to be the highest owned guy at running back today, is going to be the guy that I think you need to get to the most. It's not going to be fun to talk about because I don't like getting to guys in these situations all that frequently, but today you can't avoid it. Josh Kelly's 5K. Yes, he is 5K, and you don't really have much of a choice but to get to him. I think he's going to be very heavily owned, probably the highest owned running back just because of that price tag. And that's because we're not going to see Austin Eckler today. And I assume Josh Kelly is just going to get the lion's share of work. I think it is abundantly clear that he is the best point per dollar guy that you can get to today. So I have no problem whatsoever getting to Josh Kelly. I will happily eat that chalk. But remember, this is going right back to what I just said. Don't just look at the ownership of a particular individual and think, oh, that guy is owned, I can't play him. When you're playing the Josh, like in cash games, Josh Kelly's the first name that you're putting into your lineup. But when you go to GPPs, when you start getting to these higher owned guys, when you go to someone like Josh Kelly, let's say you pair him with Christian McCaffrey, who's looking like probably the second most owned guy. It's either going to be him or probably AJ Dillon, since there's no Aaron Jones. When you get to those guys, that just means you have to be, you need to be different elsewhere. If you get to a quarterback that is like sub 5% owned with another wide receiver of his that is relatively low owned, you're immediately just making your lineup unique, and the ownership that you have at running back becomes way less important. But it's all about how these pieces fit together. So we're starting it off right out of the gate. Josh Kelly is going to be the first guy you're likely to put into a cash lineup just because of that price tag. All the way up at the top is Christian McCaffrey, $8,900. He's $900 more expensive than any other running back on the slate. He is currently second in our ownership projections. I expect that pairing to be very popular from a cash perspective. They look like the two best guys that you can get to. And then I think just because of Jones being out for the Packers, that's going to just look a little bit different. AJ Dillon's just going to be a lot easier to get to, assuming Aaron Jones is like officially out. I don't know if that is that. I mean, we'll know that in 2 hours, one way or the other. I haven't looked at any sort of confirmation, but I already told my wife to take him out. So AJ Dillon looks fantastic if you're looking to save a little bit more salary. $5,900, so $900 more expensive than Josh Kelly. But I think those are the three names that stand out most to me. McCaffrey's on a different level, and we know what we're getting when you pay all the way up. I don't necessarily have as much. I think there are better ways to spend $8,900 today. I'm getting to other pieces of the 49ers, but you can't just ignore Christian McCaffrey. Then as we work our way through the rest of the running backs, like there aren't really a ton of pay up options on the alternative to McCaffrey. Saquon is $8K. Bijan Robinson is $7,900. After that, we're already a full $1,000 away from McCaffrey. So there aren't many different options at the tippy top. And that's why I think you see McCaffrey pulling a little bit more ownership. I think he just looks significantly better than anybody else you can spend salary on at the running back spot. But where I really want to go is sort of the mid to upper tier. The Tony Pollard, Derrick Henry, I think looks pretty interesting today. Josh Jacobs. These are guys that are all like 10 to 15% owned that I'm at least matching the field on. Joe Mixon at 6,500. It couldn't have gone much worse for the Bengals in week one. I'm hoping that they can recover at least a little bit. I'm getting back to them, all the pass catchers, getting to Mixon. That's the area that I like a little bit more. James Conner, James Cook. There's this section from 6K to the mid sevens. And I think that's the overall best area that you can get to today at running back after you hit all of those main cash options. If we're talking running back pay down options, I don't know how much is out there that I feel good about. There's not really any ownership coming in below Josh Kelly in any sort of extreme way. And that's where I think it starts to get kind of weird at running back. Josh Kelly's going to pull, 20 to 30% ownership. And then there's not really any alternatives below him. You've got Kyren Williams also at 5K. I don't think they're even close to the same thing. I would be much, much more interested. Like I look at Josh Kelly now, the highest owned guy in our boom bust tool is 2.5% ownership going to Zach Moss. I think he is probably the guy that you get to. Moss is going to be at 4,700. But I don't see it. I think Josh Kelly is the floor of anything that you want to volumize. Clearly, you can always get to little different pieces depending on how many lineups you're playing, depending on which contest you're in. But I see the floor today at running back, 5K Josh Kelly in terms of any sort of volume. If you want anybody else, though, it's going to be Zach Moss. When it comes to like random tournament pivots, low-owned-ish guys, I don't really have a single one. The main running backs that I'm getting to are all already pulling a little bit of ownership. Chat, if you see anybody, who do you see at running back? A name that I haven't said yet, the guy that you're looking at that maybe is slipping through the cracks. Let me know in the chat who that dude is. AH says, how stoned is Josh? Not at all. Not for me. I'm not a morning guy. Not a morning guy for it. All right, so I'm seeing Hill, Gibbs. Okay. Humble says, I like Josh Jacobs this week. There's Kenneth Walker. There's another Gibbs. Gibbs and Hill are the two. Gibbs, Hill, and Walker now are the guys that are showing up the most. Hill will get a little bit of ownership. It's not, to me, not a priority. That's not really the way that I'm looking at it. Ooh, there's Elijah Dotson. Now that's the kind of play that I think starts to look interesting if you're talking about larger field GPPs. Because everybody's going to go to Josh Kelly. If it just happens to not be Kelly, does it end up being Spiller or Dotson? Are they just throwing and throwing and throwing? When you want to start getting away from that Josh Kelly ownership, I can see the direction you would want to go. I'll let everybody know right now. In terms of exposure for me at running back, it's Josh Kelly, Josh Jacobs, David Montgomery, who is projecting for at least a little bit of ownership, Rashad White, and then Derrick Henry. They are the guys that I have the most of right now. But that's really going to be it for running back. To me, running back is the least interesting spot to talk about. Just because It's the one spot on the field where I don't really want to get weird with guys that might not have work. I'm going to be very concentrated on opportunity at running back. It's not the place where I want to get really, really weird. I want to know guys are going to be out there. All right, so we're already 12 minutes into this bad boy. At 10 o'clock, we're going to flip this one over to the NFL Deeper Dive show. That's going to be Loughy, Ben, Spags. They're going to take you through every single game on today's slate, every single one of them. They're going to go from 10 o'clock in the morning until like 11:45. You're not going to get a more in-depth analysis anywhere in this industry than you will on that Deeper Dive show today. So make sure you're showing up and sticking around for that one. After that, NFL Live Before Lock will take you all the way up until 1 p.m. We're already up over 1,100 viewers. I love getting out of the gates this quick, man. It's really fun, but we're light on likes. You guys got to hit that thumbs up. It's going to help us out a ton. Time to get to the wide receivers now. This is where I think usually the most fun situation to talk about is going to be the wide receiver position. Right now, Stephon Diggs is the guy projected for the most amount of ownership. Stephon Diggs is also the most expensive wide receiver on the main slate. He is $8K. Now, I have absolutely no problem whatsoever getting to Stephon Diggs. He does look really good. I would assume you're going to be looking at him very, very strongly in a cash situation. But I don't see a lot of differences at the top between Diggs, Chase, Amon-Ra St. Brown. I don't love CeeDee Lamb as much. I do, once again, like Devontae Adams quite a bit at 7,600. Garrett Wilson's going to be a tough sell at 7,500, given what's going on in New York. Although, I'm going to put this out there right now. I don't know why I have this feeling. Every once in a while, I do. I think the Jets win today. I don't like it, though. I don't like it at all. So, yeah, you're looking at those top three guys of Diggs, Chase, Amon-Ra St. Brown. 20% owned, 17% owned, 19% owned. All three of these guys looking pretty similar. I'm getting to Chase more, but I think that you can kind of like the guy that you like the most in that trio is fine by me. We're not going to quibble over three of the best wide receivers in football, but I'm finding myself getting to Chase more. I'm finding myself just concentrating on Cincinnati. That did not work out in week one. I'm hoping that it works out a little bit more in week two. But if we're looking for the cash type plays at wide receiver for today, I think Diggs is going to be one of those first guys. I think Diggs is going to be the guy before St. Brown and before Jamar Chase. Then as you work your way down, I guess we need to talk about one of the stars of the show from last week and what we actually do with him. But Puka Nacua is 4,900. Assuming we get positive information on him, he does have a little bit of injury tag on him. At 4,900, I think, assuming his health is fine, he'll be another one of those premier, maybe not premier, but one of the key cash options, because 4,900 is just like the most appealing value price that exists. And I'm seeing myself getting to Puka Nacua. It makes me a little uncomfortable. That one feels like I'm going right back to the thing that went crazy in week one, but I can't look at it any other way. His salary just doesn't show you what we saw in week one. So I think he's going to look very popular as another cash option. We've got some more guys in that 5K range. This is where it really gets tricky. I don't know which one of these guys I like more. And that's where it gets a little dicey. But Brandon Ayuk is 5,800. He had the 2 touchdowns in week one for the Niners. Deebo Samuel, 5,600. I think both of these guys are going to be pretty similar in ownership. They're very similar in price. How do we separate Deebo Samuel and Brandon Ayuk today? That becomes kind of tricky because I like that range in that mid-5s, but those guys look very similar with regards to projection and with regards to sort of upside. We have Brandon Ayuk, 11% boom bust. We have Deebo Samuel at 10, same exact ownership, basically the same optimal odds. So separating between those two guys starts to get a little difficult. I'm certainly going to be going back to Calvin Ridley. I liked him a lot in week one. That certainly paid off. But I need Jamar Chase. That's the one that I want the most. Chase was a guy that really hurt me last week. And unfortunately, that slowed me down a bit. We're going to see if that works out a little bit better. I'm going to lead you into the stack that I am prioritizing quite a bit today. This is going to be the team that I'm looking at in GPPs a little bit more frequently than most. They aren't grading out amazing in our top stacks tool, which kind of surprised me a little bit, but I am getting to quite a bit of Keenan Allen. Let's just put that one out there. Remember, we have no Austin Eckler. That's opening things up. Quite a bit of Keenan Allen, quite a bit of Mike Williams. I really, really like the Chargers today as a stack, as a team that I am trying to get to. As I look at the Chargers in a little bit more, I mean, they stand out, right? Total in that game is 45.5. They're slight favorites in Tennessee. And I think they're much more likely to be throwing the ball today. So the Chargers stack is the stack that I am looking for. I know that we're going to get to stacks towards the end. We still have about 10 minutes before I duck out of here, but that is what I'm looking at wide receiver for today. Chat, hit me with any of the thoughts on wideouts that you guys have. I'm going to let you know Mike Williams, Keenan Allen, along with Deebo Samuel and Devontae Adams. They are the 4 most exposed wideouts that I have today. If we're looking for my fades, I am lighter on Stephon Diggs. I am lighter on Amon-Ra St. Brown. I am light on last week's pseudo hero, Zay Flowers. Those are my 3 bigger fades. Don't dig too much into Stephon Diggs and Amon-Ra St. Brown. If I had twice the field of both of those guys, I'd be cool with it. But the team that I'm looking at the most today, if it's not the Chargers, it's the 49ers. I'm getting to Samuel, Ayuk, Allen, and Williams. Those are my 4 main priorities as pass catchers. There's the Josh Reynolds shout. Peter wants to know, they talk DK way more than FanDuel. Not sure why, because FanDuel doesn't actually want you to talk about them. They don't care about their site. So there's that. Better prize pools, a site that will actually fix a glitch that will allow things to be typed into the title of a contest. It's crazy how that works. You know who we are going to talk about, though? We're not going to talk about FanDuel right now. We're not even going to talk about DraftKings right now. We got to talk about Owner's Box. This is the sell job that I got to give you guys as we head down the home stretch of this show before I turn it over to the deeper dive. So 1, 1,400 people hit that like button. 2, sign up at Owner's Box. This is what you need to do. Link is in the description of this video. You want to click it. You need to deposit at least $10. We're going to start there. My recommendation to you, deposit upwards of 500 if you can. They have a 100% deposit match bonus up to $500. So if you put in 500, they're going to match with 500. Now it is a trickle bonus. You don't just immediately get it. You're going to get it in Owner's Bucks, and you unlock based on your entry fees, you'll unlock 4%. It's a standard trickle bonus that has existed in the industry for a while. I've already unlocked a ton from week 1. You also get from us 1 week of our NFL Sims Max package. This is the highest level thing that we have on the NFL side. And this will not just cover you for Owner's Box. This will cover you for DK and FanDuel if you're playing there as well. This is the brand new tool. Now, if you want to go to stokastic.com/join NFL, that'll let you get all of the details about our sim tool. But really, what I want to just explain is you can generate a 10,000 lineup field, simulate all of those lineups against each other, and find out the ROI of individual players, stack combinations, lineups themselves. This tool is set up perfectly for you to make that deposit into Owner's Box and use the tool that you get for free on Owner's Box. It's the perfect situation. As I mentioned, I finished 10th using this tool. Steve Buzzard, DeColts, finished 3rd last week using this tool. It's 50K up top again on Owner's Box. They shrunk the size a little bit, but as of right now, I have it pulled up on the screen. I know Jordan was sharing it as well. It is 25% filled. They need 12,000 entries to basically stop overlay. Anything before that is going to be, or anything after that is going to be reduced rake. Either way, whether this is just simply reduced rake or massive overlay, this is the contest you want to get into. It'll be the best one in the industry that you can get to. Click the link in the description or in chat and sign up now. All right, we got about 5 minutes before I get out of here. We're going to sum up the rest of the positions. And these positions are very easy to talk through. We don't like to spend a lot of time on tight end, on defense, on quarterback. Travis Kelce is back. Travis Kelce, 7,600. Clearly the best tight end option that you can get to. He is pulling pseudo the most ownership that you can get, So if you have the ability to pay up, please pay up for Travis Kelce. That is never, ever, ever going to be an issue. The only other thing that I think you should be doing, this is probably your cash game tight end. That's going to be Luke Musgrave, 3,200 for the Packers, coming in second in ownership. Both he and Kelce are the only ones above 10%. Musgrave is the guy that you're going to save money at tight end. Probably the cash option, unless you have an overwhelming amount of ability to get to Travis Kelce. But those two are the two premier tight ends. Everybody you go to after that, you can justify in any way. I'm getting to a bunch of Irv Smith. As I mentioned before, I do like Cincinnati, so he's coming along for the ride. But I don't have any preferences at tight end outside of Musgrave and Kelce. They are the two premier options. One, because of Travis Kelce just having the volume. The other for Luke Musgrave just being way too cheap at 3,200 for what his role is. Defenses for today, just gross like it usually is. Not something that I normally like talking about. Cowboys at 4K against the Jets. They are the highest owned defense right now. I don't know if I love going to like a chalky, expensive defense. The Cardinals at 2,600 are the next one up. Also looks pretty good to me. Buccaneers are at 3,200. They seem to be the three highest owned defenses. I kind of usually just get whatever I can get here. So it makes me feel like the Cardinals are probably the option I'm looking for, but it's defense. I'm in a large field contest. I really just want to be away from the ownership as much as I can. And then finally, closing it out, quarterback. Now, all quarterback does is explain which stacks you like the most. Your quarterback comes along for the ride on the running back, wide receiver, tight end side. Whatever's driving those guys, that's what you end up with at quarterback. Today, very easy to talk about. There's a clear cash option, and I think that's going to be Josh Allen at 7,900. I think he's the guy that's going to pull the most ownership. Josh Allen is the cash guy that you get to, which doesn't surprise me. We also saw the big ownership on Stephon Diggs. So I think Allen Diggs is the cash combo you look to. In a large field GPP, you can still go to those guys. You just need to find your ownership discounts elsewhere. I'm not getting to Josh Allen. My biggest priority at quarterback this week is not going to be any sort of surprise. I've got three of them. The first one, working top to bottom in salary, is going to be Justin Herbert. I mentioned I really like the Chargers. I've got a ton of Keenan Allen. I've got a ton of Mike Williams. I am getting to Josh Kelly. Not going to stop me from going full bore on the Chargers. I really like Joe Burrow. It was bad last week. Very, very bad last week up against the Browns D. Going to be, I hope, a little bit different. They are 3-point favorites with the 46-point total, taking on the Ravens this week. So I'm going to Burrow, hoping they wake up a little bit. Give me Burrow, give me Chase, give me Higgins, give me Irv Smith, certainly give me Joe Mixon. And then finally, I mentioned that I have a lot of Deebo Samuel. I have a lot of Brandon Ayuk. I still have some Christian McCaffrey, but not all the way at the top. Brock Purdy is my current most exposed quarterback for today. Taking on the Rams, touchdown favorites, 45-point total. I love this spot for the Niners, especially love getting to Brock Purdy at relatively low ownership. That's the three main keys I'm getting to at the quarterback spot. We're already at the end of it all. As I look at our top stacks tool, Buffalo is the number one stack listed. Cincinnati 2, San Francisco 3. So two of my top three all right there, but they're not the ones getting the same ownership as we're seeing coming into Josh Allen. My Chargers are a little bit further down the line, but I'm willing to eat that one. I think they should be a little bit higher. We're at 9:56. That's how quickly 26 minutes can go away, folks. Chat, I barely got a chance to interact with you guys. It was fun, though. Does Josh not give out sleepers, or does he just give obvious plays? I'm just setting the table for today, letting everybody know where the eyeballs are to start today. Now you get into the real analysis. Dave Loughran, Ben Rasa, Chris Spags, all coming up next, breaking down every single game in detail for at least the next hour and 45 minutes, but we're going all the way up until 1 o'clock. Hit that like button, subscribe to the channel. Don't go anywhere. NFL Deeper Dive coming up next. Shout out to Owner's Box. Win some money. Have some fun. I'm out of here.
What is up, guys? I am starting to build out my lineups for week 2 of the NFL season and want to show you some of the results that I'm getting to with the helps of the different tools and data we have over at Stokastic.com. In particular, our simulation tool already built out 10,000 lineups, simulated them out as well. So wanted to show you some of the results. If you could do me a favor, if you're watching this on YouTube, Twitter, wherever it might be, like the post, like the video, and also follow, subscribe. It does help a whole bunch out, and it's only going to take you a couple of seconds, and you get more free content that helps you build out good lineups, make some money. Just do me a favor, follow and subscribe. And if you want to sign up for the football package that we have at Stokastic.com, there's a link included below. Our football package includes everything: player projections, ownership projections, tools like the top stacks tool, our showdown game plays tool. All of that is included. And then you also get the contest generator, the sim tool, all under one NFL package. Link below if you're looking to sign up. Now let's get to the lineups. And right away, I'll favorite my top 150, and that is going to be lineups that have the highest projected ROI. My overall number 1 ROI projected lineup here, it is a Patrick Mahomes stack with Travis Kelce, just a single stack. As far as the rest of the lineup, have another tight end in there, Adam Troutman, who's expected to be one of the better tight end values on the slate with Greg Dulcich unlikely to play. Rest of the lineup, David Montgomery and Rachaad White at running back. Wide receivers, Jamar Chase, Chris Godwin, Josh Reynolds, and the Raiders defense in here. I don't presume I'm going to be getting too much of the Raiders defense, but they did end up in my highest projected lineup here. As far as the stack that is popping up most frequently amongst my top projected lineups, it's different iterations of the Bengals and Joe Burrow lineups. Now, last week, Joe Burrow, no good, very bad. Ended up with, 82, 83 passing yards. He looked terrible. The Bengals offense was out of sorts. If you remember last week, though, we kind of saw something similar out of Joe Burrow in week 1, and there is some similar narrative to that as well, because last year, what happened in training camp, Joe Burrow ends up having surgery, needs to have an appendectomy done, and maybe wasn't totally 100% healthy for week 1. Also, might not have had all the rust worked off of him. This year, week 1, he suffers a calf injury in the preseason. We don't see him play a whole bunch or practicing in training camp with the team. And there was some doubt whether he would be ready to play for week 1. He ends up playing and looked a little rusty. So last week, he ends up doing basically nothing on the stat sheet. Last year, week 1, he threw 4 interceptions. I like Joe Burrow to bounce back. Nothing that I see too concerning. And a handful of quarterbacks that didn't have the best stat lines in week 1, I think should fare better in week 2. Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, Joe Burrow amongst those stud quarterbacks that I'm expecting a bounce back from. And let's see what it's looking like as far as our exposures go, starting by looking at the stack exposures. Quarterbacks I'm getting to the most in single stack lineups, Patrick Mahomes, 12%. Not a whole lot of my lineups that are the top projected ones were single stacks, but of the ones that were primarily Patrick Mahomes, followed by Josh Allen at 6%. But where I'm getting to a little bit more, or I should say the bulk of my lineup build exposure is with the double stacks here. 20% of my double stack lineups include Josh Allen, 12% of them Joe Burrow. And if you look at the top stacks tool that we have over at Stokastic.com, the 3 teams that we've projected to be the highest scoring stacks on the slate, it is the Chiefs, it is the Bills, and it's the Bengals. So not all that surprising that these are the quarterbacks that ended up getting to most predominantly. And then some triple stacks as well, but nothing too crazy. Some Josh Allens in here, some Joe Burrows. Let's look at the individual player exposures, where I'm getting to a ton of David Montgomery now. Nearly 3/4 of my lineups contain David Montgomery. He's expected to be fairly-ish popular on the slate, 14.3% projected own. But yeah, showing up in a ton of my lineups. David Montgomery projecting is one of the best plays on the slate for us. And then simming as somebody who's well under-owned as well. Wide receivers, getting to a bunch of Deebo Samuel, followed by Stephon Diggs. And the Diggs is going to correlate nicely with all the Josh Allen that I'm getting to. Talked about Adam Troutman, tight end. Dulcich not expected to play. Troutman's going to step in at a really, really, really cheap price point. So if you're going to go cheap at tight end, Troutman looks like the guy. If you're going to pay up, Travis Kelce, the one who's popping up most often for me. And just based on what the Chiefs passing game looked like in week 1, Sky Moore, not getting open, not catching passes. Kadarius Toney, dropping anything within a 5-foot radius of him. I really do expect we're going to see a massive target share for Travis Kelce, like him a whole bunch as a pay-up option in week 2. Other running backs we're getting to, Rachaad White and Christian McCaffrey. So these are the 3 running backs I consider my core plays at the position. One thing that's really nice about it is just opportunity. particularly for Rachaad White and Christian McCaffrey. They're the only two running backs in week one that played 100% of their team snaps. Both of them are in line for really big workloads going forward. So McCaffrey and then also Rachaad White. I think these are two running backs we're going to want to be targeting in week two. So well overweight to the field on both of them. As far as wide receivers, we've got the Debo, we've got Stephon Diggs, we've got Chris Godwin. For the Bengals stacks, both Tyler Boyd and Jamar Chase. And then we got the Rams receivers, Tutu Atwell and Puka Nacua. I actually came fairly close to winning the Millie Maker in week one. My best lineup finished 50th, if I remember correctly. But there was a point in time where Stafford, late in the game, had a chance to hit Nacua deep downfield. If he would have caught that, it would have briefly been in first in the Millie Maker. All that aside, Nacua is going to be fairly popular as a cheap play at wide receiver. $4,900 is his price point off the top of my head. Field is getting there. Not really all that different from the field. We got him projected for 17% ownership. I have him in 18% of my lineup. So pretty neutral to the field as far as Nacua goes, but I am overweight to the field on Atwell, who's only projected for 6% ownership. Let's see who I'm coming in underweight to the field to here. Players that I am underweight to. One of them here is Saquon Barkley, followed by Calvin Ridley, Josh Jacobs, Keenan Allen. So Barkley on paper does have a good matchup against the Arizona Cardinals, but there are a lot of running backs that are projected fairly well on this slate. And one thing that is a little bit of concern with Barkley in the matchup against the Cardinals, the total in that game is only 40 points. So not expected to have a lot of scoring, not expected a whole lot of production. So coming in underweight to the field on Barkley. Ridley as well. Ridley looked great in week one, but he's a pay-up option now. And instead, I'm prioritizing guys like Stephon Diggs and Jamar Chase as spend-up wide receivers. And, can't always play everybody. Josh Jacobs, Keenan.
About Ben, how he hurt his eye while sleeping or so. What did you do while sleeping?
That was during the Jets game. A transformer blew, and somehow it was so dry in the room. I woke up like this, and my eyelid scratched my eye.
He was sleeping and scratched his eye.
Insane. Then I got COVID the next day.
Yeah, you had a bad week. What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Stokastic.com NFL Deeper Dive, baby. It's back. Time of that year again, week two. It's going to go quick, too, so soak it up. Relish in this. We got 12 games today. Happy that you guys can join us. I'm Dave Loughy at Loughy_D on the X, I should say. LOUGHY_D. Joined by Ben Rasa at JazzRazDFS. What's good, brother? How you feeling today? Doing good?
Feel great. Coming off a real good college football day, which always kind of sets the tone for me. If it's terrible, kind of and then if it's good, I kind of feel good. I'm ready to go here. I like this slate. I like the perfect number of games for me. I have a feeling I'm going to put it out immediately. I think someone in the Stokastic community is going to have a gigantic win today. I'm feeling very good about this slate.
You don't usually just say that. So something
No, I don't.
It's like a premonition.
Yeah, someone is taking it down today from the Stokastic family.
All right, let's go. And hey, as always, joining us all season long, Chris Spags at Chris Spags on Twitter, host of the Splash Play Pod too. I suggest you check that out and everything else he's doing over there. What's up, brother? How you doing?
Excited to be here again. Glad I got to come back. I think next week I have to fill in for Eric and Gajewski, who are both out on Live Before Lock. So I actually have to cherish the time we get together here even more so before I have to go into the run of things. Of course, the excitement on Live Before Lock that, as the host know, very difficult to build lineups as things are breaking and ruining your day right in front of your eyes.
Yeah, it's not fun. You're holding that football again, huh?
Oh, yeah. I mean, this is just a bit now. Scott Hansen did it on a stream with Pete, my podcast partner, Pete Overset. And I'm like, this is a look that I want to bring to life. And look at, like, I'm gesturing, and don't I have so much more gravitas because I'm holding a football? So you know that intrinsically I know ball.
But honestly, I'll be honest, makes me feel the complete opposite. It makes me feel like you're the guy on ESPN that's walking around with like the nice pants, but the sneakers on, because that's the thing nowadays, with the football in his hand. You know what I'm talking about? They walk around and they're like going over plays.
I'm tucking it. Look, the point of the football in the elbow. Nobody's stripping this one no matter what. You can come walk in the studio right now. I'm not fumbling. That's how I know ball.
I will rock that fucking ball out of your hand.
You probably could drive over and get here before the end of the stream if we really tried.
Hey, Ben, take over. Happy to have you guys with us as always. And hey, if you haven't done so yet, take a single second here and hit that thumbs up. It's a Sunday morning. Atone for your sins, my friends. You're here when maybe you should be somewhere else. The least you could do is hit that thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and help us on that long haul, that long climb to get to 100,000 subs. One way or another, we're glad that you guys can join us. We got 12 games to break down today. Last week we had 13, but am I the only one that absolutely loves double Monday night football games? Like, I think it's the best thing ever. Guess I am. You don't like it, Ben?
No, it's fine. I guess this shouldn't matter, but it does. Like, why did they do this in week 2?
They did it last year in week 2 as well.
Well, what happened to week 1? No good?
I don't know.
Like, what are we doing?
Week 1, they're going to get the ratings regardless, so they don't have to do anything gimmicky. Week 2, it's like these games are a little bit ugly. Let's do a double header, but I like it too, like a 2-game DFS slate on Monday night. Get a little break from Showdown. I think that works pretty well.
That's
and not just that, those Spags. You're also like 13 games, especially from a content perspective. Sometimes that one additional game just feels overwhelming doing content. So give me 12 and then a Sunday night game. Then I get a 2-game actual non-showdown slate on. I would take this every week if I could.
I agree.
Every week. But Ben just likes to, take the contrarian negative side of everything. That's okay.
It's not true. I said someone in our community is going to win $1 million. How can that be negative?
It's an interesting color scheme you've got going on today too. It's like
I was wondering if I was going to get anything about that.
Yeah, yellow with like a. Is it a brown or
like a golden gophery Minnesota kind
of?
Yeah,
it's like a Minnesota.
That's it. Yeah.
If they can do it, I can do it. They put like garbage yesterday. So
let's talk some football. First up on the slate, and like I said, 12 games today. Some of these, as you guys know, we'll spend a lot more time on than others. That's just the way it goes. Some of them we won't spend as much time on. Oh, real quick, Chris Greenmeyer, super chat, $20 super chat, chopped the FanDuel $4 20K on top Thursday night GPP by using the Sims tool, 40 into 900. Thanks, guys, for the content. 2 profitable slates in a row. Let's do it again. Awesome. Congratulations.
And Jorge as well. Gifting subs. Our man Jorge was in the chat. He dropped a $20 super chat, gifted a bunch of subs to the YouTube community. It's good vibes. You see?
Jorge's the man. Took down 9th in the Millie with the Sims tool last week with over 1 million entries. Another W yesterday in the UFC thanks to the Top Fighters tool. Chat, sign up to use the best tools in the industry, and let's get that Millie today. Hey, couldn't agree more. And thanks for gifting all those memberships. If you got one from Jorge, make sure to say thanks. All right, Spags, I'm going over to you to kick this one off. We got first up, and this, I guess we have what, 1, 2. There's a few games with relatively high totals, but Las Vegas and Buffalo, no Jacoby Myers, 47-point total. Bills laying 8 at home. I've seen so much chatter across Twitter or X, just everywhere. Like either the Bills are horrible and week 1 showed it and something is broken, or I tend to take the stance of Josh Allen has struggled in 3 consecutive games against the Jets. I think that he's going to come back out and have himself a decent game here as 8-point favorites with one of the highest implied totals on the slates. Feel free to kick this one off on either side, Vegas or Buffalo, and let's go with it.
So I think the Buffalo side, kind of speaks for itself. High total there, 27.3 implied points of that game. They're the biggest favorite of the week, one of the highest likely winners of the week. I think Dallas a little bit ahead in terms of the money line and all of that. So I'm on board with the Buffalo redemption. I think there's some Twitter doctors I've heard talk about Josh Allen's UCL and that being a lingering issue that's maybe resulting in him playing poorly. I agree with Loughy that I think it's the Jets. The Jets D is one of the best ones in the league last year. They showed it again, I think, in week 1, being able to prop up Zach Wilson enough. Part that I'm intrigued by in this game, though, which I don't think is going to bear out from the simulations, the projections, but I do feel like kind of stands out to me. Jimmy Garoppolo was legitimately good in week 1, and that could be the matchup. That could be a whole different bunch of factors here. Obviously, a new offense you're putting on tape for Vegas with Garoppolo being a better version of Derek Carr within the framework of the Josh McDaniels offense. But he was one of the top QBs in the league, 0.24 EPA per target in week 1 in terms of dropbacks, 0.24 EPA per pass as well. So basically, every time he was dropping back, he was creating value downfield, creating value in terms of how he's performing, keeping the train running on time, so to speak, but also keeping it ahead. So I think there's a chance the Raiders can hang in this game, and then that as a result needs more production from Buffalo instead of just them putting it on and maybe pulling guys early. So I think this game could be live for game stacks, and I think Jimmy G, to me, just a guy that goes criminally underappreciated because in fantasy doesn't stand out, but guy ran 9 times in week 1 too, so maybe he is kind of a re-emerging fantasy option.
Keeping the trains running on time is an interesting quote to use.
I know it's a Mussolini one. I know somebody brought it up to me.
I wasn't going to let that go.
But that is the EPA metric, though. It's like 8 yards per play. You're keeping
I know.
I can't help. I didn't make the analytics. I don't know.
I know. He wasn't that bad. Now, before I go to Ben, though, I do want to ask you this, because I'm looking at last week. You got Denver and Las Vegas. The Broncos offense is broken until they can prove to me that they can put some points up and actually help that defense. I'll take the same stance that I have since the beginning of last season or a few weeks. Can Garoppolo compete in a potential shootout against a good offense that can run points up?
I think he can. I mean, I think when you have Adams, you can compete with anybody.
Sure.
Yeah, sure. I mean, the thing about Jimmy G, it doesn't preclude him from being playable. He just, to me, is a better real-life quarterback than fantasy quarterback, and it actually works against him in some times. Like, if he was more erratic, they fell behind more, he would be forced to be less efficient, and maybe the volume would come up a little bit. But this is a game, north of a touchdown. He might not have that luxury to just manage the game. If they fall behind, he's going to have to kind of push the ball down the field, be a little more aggressive. So I see it. I certainly think, like most people, the predominant stack is going to be on the Buffalo side with an Adams bring back rather than a Raider stack with, say, like a Diggs bring back, just because Buffalo's implied total is higher. They're at home. They have to have this game, and it's a healthy total at 47.
So then so Ben, let's say you're single entry contest and you're playing this game. How are you playing it?
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, even in single entry or 3-max, it's pretty prevalent and generic in the sense that I want Josh Allen with 1 or 2 of his skill position players, and then probably a bring back with, a Raiders skill position player, and that player is probably Devontae Adams. So it's, I think that the one thing that could be a little interesting, looking at our tools, James Cook is someone, Loughy, you've talked about all week a little bit. I think he can be included in Josh Allen type teams. He's a receptions threat. He kind of gives you some leverage within the Buffalo stack, and they could score a boatload of touchdowns today. So for me, it's going to be a couple of guys with Allen and then probably Adams on the bring back. Bourne being out opens the door, I think, for maybe like a dart throw on like a Renfro, but he's also live to score as much as all of us today. Just his floor is straight 0.
Where are you at on Gabe Davis, Spags?
I think he's still the same option he's been historically, where he's going to give you one of those 30-point days sometime coming up here. I don't know if this is necessarily the matchup, though. The Raiders did struggle against the deep ball a little bit in week 1, 0.2 EPA per target downfield, which would be towards the bottom middle half of the league. I guess Gabe is playable as leverage against Diggs, but I just think Diggs is the better receiver, and I think a lot of what's gone on with Buffalo this offseason has kind of been Diggs greasing the wheels of him getting more touches, being that kind of high-volume guy. He complained about his role. Josh Allen said he had to fix some things. Then we come to week 1, and against a really tough Jets defense, Diggs is fed pretty aggressively, fed pretty aggressively downfield in a matchup where normally you don't do that. So I think Gabe is just the guy he's been, except it gets a little bit worse. You have Kincaid out there running routes. You have Knox still in the mix. You have Hardy getting some gimmicky touches. I think he's just kind of a less volume version of himself.
Okay. Who are your favorite spots? I want to make sure we're covering this game in total. Because, I love the Allen Diggs stack. With Gabe Davis, and I think it's Ben that said this earlier in the week. I think you mentioned this to me on the First Look show, Ben, that Gabe Davis is the type of guy that you're kind of expecting 5 to 7 targets, but then once in a while, every season, he's going to have that monster game where you absolutely need him if you intend on winning anything. And then you've got Dalton Kincaid and you got Dawson Knox and Dalton Kincaid, who were on the field, both of them, almost the entirety of that game last week. So James Cook, Kincaid, Knox, Diggs, Davis, there's no shortage of options here. It's just really for both of you guys, and then we can wrap this one up. What is the best way to play it? Ben, you kind of hit on it, but Spags, for you, how do you hit on this, their best way to play it if you were to prioritize options in the Buffalo passing game? And then on the run back side, is it Adams? Is it Jacobs? Are you getting Renfro?
I do think the double stack with Buffalo, where you're getting Cook and Diggs with Allen's coming up a good amount for me with the sim, so I feel pretty good about that. The Kincaid one, don't mind that price tag either, as kind of a same price point pivot to Luke Musgrave, who should pick up some more chalky ownership and be, as Josh mentioned on the last show, probably the cash game tight end of the day. But I think really, the Buffalo main stack is kind of the key thing that's most likely to hit. Like, I may think the Raiders can keep it competitive on their side, but obviously fantasy wise, you're looking at that Bill stack being the primary force. And I think you can go Allen, Cook, Diggs, bring back Adams. Maybe if you take on one of the other Bills receivers, I think you do Jacobs as a bring back. But I think this game, though, is one where it would not shock me to see QB +2 and then a bring back be the thing that wins this week. So that's kind of the approach I would play. And I'd be willing to play it from both sides a little bit, though, much more on the Bills side, obviously.
Yeah, I'm with you there. Then we got KC and Jacksonville, Ben, 51-point total here. Kansas City, 3.5-point favorites. Kelsey's expected to play. Clyde Edwards-Helaire he had an illness like midweek and then still didn't practice Friday. He's questionable. So if you're looking at Pacheco and potentially concerned that there could be some type of timeshare, at least Clyde Edwards-Helaire getting some work, it's possible that he doesn't play in this game. We'll see. But with Kansas City, now that you have Kelsey returning, we saw them open the season, the NFL season in general, against Detroit. Kadarius Toney was the best defender on the Detroit Lions all game long. That game probably is a Kansas City win and cover in a low-scoring contest if Kadarius Toney drop pass doesn't result in the pick six. But now you've got Kelsey back. Sky Moore just ran a bunch of routes and got some exercise in. But you have to think eventually one of these guys, and maybe in your opinion, it's just not worth going there, right? Like outside of a Travis Kelce. But from Sky Moore to Kadarius Toney, whose snap count was much lower than MVS and Sky Moore. How do you play this now that we have Kelsey back, but also, once again, a bunch of cheap Kansas City pass catching options?
Yeah, again, I don't think there's a perfect formula for it. You look at this game, 51-point total, road favorites, competitive game, back and forth is expected. I think it's analogous a little to Gabe Davis, where your floors are not solid here for these guys because the Chiefs can do so many different things, but they're also tapping into an offense that could put up 35 points today, no doubt about it, and they could have a hand in that. So I think that if you're comfortable in large field tournaments, it's not bad to say, you know what, it's probably not an MVS day, but I want him in the portfolio because he can randomly catch a 70-yard touchdown, and he might have a couple opportunities to do just that. I mean, of course, Mahomes, Kelsey, we'll see what's up with Pacheco. I love the way he plays. I just don't know about workload at times. And then I think there's a huge drop-off to the roulette wheel that is these Chiefs wide receivers. So I have a little of MVS in the portfolio right now, but it's just by pure, I want some pieces of the Chiefs because I believe in this game.
Where are you at on a really strange Chiefs team, Spags?
I think Kelsey is the only one that really stands out to me. I agree with all the takes that it's sort of tough to parse this out. And these guys are all kind of mini Gabe Davises, where you do know there's a 20-point game. There's a 30-point game potentially for one of them. Like Kadarius Toney, everybody on Twitter, very quick to jump on him. But I got to tell you that usage in that game, if he catches just one of those, let alone two, he's having a really good fantasy day that then makes everybody start to rethink, oh, maybe we are wrong about him, even if there are limited routes. So I like Kadarius Toney on a personal level. Like I do think that on a personal level, I too love sending mean DMs to Giants fans, and I would do that if I could, much like Kadarius Toney. But I do think that like he's a good player. I think he's a guy that all the wide receiver one stuff they've said about him is true. That said, you have the actual wide receiver one back in today with Travis Kelce. You have a way to get different from all the muck on the slate by playing Kelce. So I think Kelsey's one that stands out. Everybody else, a little bit of Sky Moore maybe, but like very little. Just nobody popping up meaningfully.
But you know what the thing is, though? The one thing that kind of stands out to me the most with this game, Spags, is if you are stacking this, right? And let's just say, you're under the assumption that this is going to be a shootout, which absolutely could be. It's a 3.5 point spread, 51 point total. It's the highest on the slate. If you're playing Patrick Mahomes, let's say you're doing a Kansas City stack and you're pairing him with Travis Kelce, that is an expensive stack, right? On DraftKings, $8,300 Mahomes, $7,600 Kelce, far and away the highest priced tight end without question. But then you start to get to some of these really, really cheap Kansas. Like the next most expensive Kansas City option is $4,600. Toney, $4,500 MVS. Sky Moore at $4,100. Rice, who saw limited snaps but was involved, $3,800. So the Kansas City double stack, while it's ugly on the second stack, it does at least open things up after having to pay so much for Mahomes and Kelce out of the gate.
Yeah, I think it makes a lot of sense when you think about the game theory and the way you just explained it, Loughy. I think the thing for me is that I'm trying to trust the sim process, especially in this beginning part of the year. And the sims are telling me that these guys, with the median projection that we have on Stochastic, with the range of outcomes they have, then based off of that median projection, it's not high enough. And I think it's something where I agree in week 2, this could be kind of a blind spot because projection wise, like even heading into week 1, it was really tough to project a guy like Rashee Rice coming from being a dominator at SMU to then taking a leap up to being on the best offense in the NFL. And then he ends up looking like the best receiver. Heading into week 2, though, like, he's going to get less, or not necessarily guaranteed to get more routes, going to get probably less opportunity. So I think it's just tough. I think we could end up looking back on the slate and going, oh yeah, like Toney was the player, Sky Moore was the player, everybody was crapping on him, and then he goes off. I think going into the week, though, it's just Kelce, and I can't see making a real case for any of these guys unless you're just going to take 2% of every single one.
Yeah, that's fair. Ben, we had some questions in comment about in chat about Jerick McKinnon. Where are you at on him?
Yeah, I mean, again, I think it's the same story. He could have a great role on this team, or Andy Reid can say, you know what, we're going with a different game plan. I don't know how you really know that because I think a lot of it is fluid based on the game itself. Like, and that makes it tough. You're building a large portfolio. Again, I think you can attach him to Mahomes stacks, but it's on the outside looking in. And I just want to say one thing very quickly. Generally with weather, I know that's a topic right now. I really just lean on Vegas. Like the total is holding pretty steady at 50.5. And if they don't think it's a major concern, I genuinely don't think it's a big deal. It could affect things, but the total is not crashing. It's not crumbling. So I think more often than not, it's very hard to quantify that, and I'm not doing much with it.
Generally, the only time that I'll pay huge attention to that is if you guys remember a Buffalo New England win game a few years ago? That
was an island game, right?
Yeah.
Thursday?
It was either Thursday or it was a primetime game for sure.
Yeah.
I don't remember when, but I remember when they were practicing, the field goal kickers were warming up pre-game, and the ball was basically going backwards. And in one of those games, you're like, okay. And if you remember, Damian Harris came out and gutted the Bills, and then he got hurt. Ramondre Stevenson came in and dinged him up a bit. I think Mac Jones completed 1 pass or 2 passes in that game. And on the other side, McDermott and Allen just continuously tried to throw, and they couldn't. They lost. So there's weird games like that. Last year, Jacksonville came to Philly, played in monsoon type weather, and I think Trevor Lawrence fumbled like 5 times or something like that. Spags, for me, like to Ben's point, unless it's something like insane weather, I'm not. And the total drops considerably, because the total, like Ben said, if you're just paying attention to the total, is going to make all the difference in the world. I'm not going to put too much stock into something like that.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I think maybe it could cement some players. Like I do think Travis Etienne in the spot. I was blown away by the usage he got in week 1. And I think maybe going to be able to hold Tank Bigsby at bay a little bit more based on what Tank did in week 1, which is not a lot. So I think ATN looks good to me. And then if you throw in the weather stuff where, okay, we're still saying it's a high total game. If the game plays optimally, ATN's a good play. If the game plays grossly, he's probably going to continue to build on the 5 targets he got in week 1. And I think that would look pretty good. So I guess you could sort of make the case that, guys that would look good normally in optimal conditions who would benefit from the weather, I think gain an appeal. And ATN to me is already a guy that I'm getting 10% of and like to get more. So I think he's the one that would stand out the most to me. And I guess Chiefs running backs too. I just don't kind of trust either of them meaningfully.
Do you have any concerns that down 2017 with 5 minutes to go in the fourth in week 1, Tank Bigsby got both of the goal line carries over Travis Etienne?
I have that concern. Yeah, I mean, that's why I was more of a Bigsby guy in best ball, but it was, 100 pick ADP difference here in a DFS slate. We both know in the beginning part of the year that you got to kind of follow the workload overall. So it's not great. I mean, even last year when the Jaguars and Chiefs played in the playoffs, it was a lot of subbing in for ATN overall. We saw a lot of JaMychal Hasty in that game because they didn't trust ATN as much in pass protection or in the long down and distance plays. And it seems like that was a little bit gone in week 1, though, as you mentioned, that is one case where it did go the other way. So I still would believe in ATN more, but Bigsby's a threat, I think, over the course of 17 weeks, probably less so in week 2.
Why do these spam accounts?
Yeah,
right?
I don't know.
What I was going to say though, what makes them think that posting it 47 times in a row is going to give anyone confidence that they are legitimate or that you should click their link?
I mean, people are just desperate for free NFL streams. They know that. They come into this audience, they're waiting to get some poor people, and they don't know that we're full of rich, handsome gentlemen all making $200K a year playing DFS.
Strong save, Spags. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, the porn bots come in, and I may hover over it for a second before
just see what the link looks like. Smart.
Yeah, before getting back to my, before grounding myself once again. But come on. Prince, yeah, I know they're bots. I'm saying, but the bots can still be set up to where you don't have to spam out 47 at a time. Anyway, Ben, your thoughts on, we just got Spags' thoughts on Jacksonville. Where are you at? Calvin Ridley. Christian Kirk was the afterthought in this offense last week, not Zay Jones, right? It was Christian Kirk. I tend to believe that this will be more of an influx offense. We see it with teams like the Eagles all the time and other teams that have a lot of weapons that they can get the ball to. How do you play this one?
Yeah, I agree. I think Jacksonville's at that level now where it's a pick your poison situation, and I don't think you need to overreact to 1 week. Having said that, I do think, and one of the few bright spots for me, that Ridley, I think, is the guy. I really believe that he is the alpha on the outside, and then you've got Kirk and Jones and Engleman and these other guys kind of cementing that potent offense. But I have no problem going back to them. I actually like the Jaguars in the game. There was 3.5 out there this morning. I talked about that on Discord. I think it's going to be a very competitive game. I mean, a minor upset if Jacksonville wins, but I think you can confidently deploy them from ETN to Ridley to even some of the secondary guys if you're going to Lawrence.
Spags, to close this game out, you talked about ETN, but, assuming we're not overly concerned with weather here, what are you doing with the passing game? And what's your favorite way to stack this game with the highest total in week 2?
So I think Ridley really does stand out to me. And I have a lot more concerns about Kirk than I think you guys do, where just the fact that they didn't have him out there running out wide, and also the fact they targeted Zay Jones more out of the slot by a wide margin they did Kirk. Obviously, that should flip a little bit, but if the volume's not going to be there, Kirk only running 23 routes in that game. It's 10 less than Ridley, a little bit less than 10 for Jones. So that looks not great in terms of the initial usage pattern. I think Ridley's the one that's the safest. The issue is that I'm seeing about 20% projected ownership for him around the industry, 16.5% on Stochastic. So Ridley, if he's going to be chalky, I think people might be left holding the bag a little bit there. But I think Ridley would be my preferred play out of the group. It's just relative to that ownership. I prefer ATN at much less ownership just because I think the role is going to be a little more steady. And for whatever it's worth, the Chiefs did show some weaknesses in week 1 against Detroit. We're pretty bad out wide, 0.9 EPA allowed out wide compared to 0.7 allowed to running back. So those would be the 2 spots to attack. So if you were going to go and ignore ownership, I think it's probably a Ridley ATN stack with Lawrence for me.
Okay, Ben, your favorite way to stack this game?
Yeah, it would be what Spags just talked about on that Jacksonville side. And then I think, if you have the money and you can luxury spend to Kelsey, great. But even if not, I think that Jacksonville just presents more reasonable price points. And at home, I feel pretty good that they show up today.
Nick asked, after you sign up for Owner's Box, what's the next step to get Sims Max? You'll hear from us. And as a matter of fact, if you wanted to take advantage of it, get the free week of our NFL Sims Max package. It's our highest package out there. You're getting it entirely free when you sign up using the link down in the description or the one in the comments that Jordan can throw in there now. Superflex contests over there. 50K up top today. And the Superflex is awesome because no one's really innovating like that. DraftKings added one, but it's small. This is 50K up top, $175,000 prize pool. I just looked right now. We are 30% filled. 30% filled with what, 2.5 hours till lock? Yeah, that seems like a good spot to jump. I know Josh points it out all the time, and he's 100% right. No matter how many great or big money contests there are in the industry, the best contests, hands down, without argument, are always going to be the ones that overlay because there's a lot of dead money. This is looking like significant overlay now. If you get it in, and Jordan Frank reached out to me before, he asked me to mention this. If you sign up, deposit, $500 first match deposit bonus, by the way. So don't think just putting in $10 is the smartest play here. If you sign up at Owner's Box using the link in the description or in chat, and you get it in before 11 Eastern, so you have about 30 minutes to do that, we will have you access to all of these tools well before the slate begins. Keep that in mind. If you want to get in, huge overlay right now, 50K up top, $175,000 prize pool, $500 first match deposit bonus plus Superflex, and you're getting all of our NFL tools, contest generator, Sims, NFL lineup simulator, ownership, player projections, top stack, premium Discord, lineup generator, everything across the board, entirety of the week free. Get it in before 11, links in the description and in chat, and start getting some lineups in there. 30% filled with 2.5 hours to go for 50K up top is insane. Owner's Box, sponsor of the Deeper Dive. Check that out. Get your free week of Stochastic Sims Max while you're at it. All right, Spags, Chargers, Titans, 45.5 point total. Not a surprise at all to see Austin Eckler out. DeAndre Hopkins, I was a little bit surprised to see that he's expected to play because he didn't practice at all this week. I actually want to start on that side of this game, assuming that he's going to be active, he's expected to play. What do you think ownership, excuse me, looks like on a guy such as DeAndre Hopkins after not practicing, having that Q tag, but going into a matchup where it's very possible they may need to throw today?
Yeah, we're seeing about 7% projected ownership on Stochastic right now, and that to me even feels a little bit more aggressive. Where
I agree.
I think he's worth it, but I know, again, not to bring up best ball with everything, but if you were in a DraftKings best ball room at any point in the summer, if there was a Q tag on a guy, that guy was going to drop 20 spots past ADP just because they were afraid of risk. And that logic didn't go away because we're now in season. People hate playing guys with the Q tag. They hate playing guys that didn't go in practice, especially in these big field tournaments. If you are playing a Millie Maker style tournament, I just don't think Hopkins gets properly represented. And we saw a lot of weaknesses from this defense last week, just in terms of what Miami did against them, where Miami was able to move the ball however they want. Tennessee's offense is the exact opposite of Miami. It is not this aggressive downfield playing offense. That said, they could not stop Miami no matter what. So even if Tennessee can do a fractionally good amount and just keep peppering Hopkins with targets, I think he's in a really good spot. So I actually like Hopkins quite a bit. I think that he's an interesting play, maybe to get the ownership product down in a Josh Kelly lineup on the other side. But overall, just a guy that has a ceiling, got a lot of work in week one, 13 intended targets in that game. Like it's a lot for Hopkins, and he's not going to be the most efficient with them at his age. But if the Chargers D is bad, like he could absolutely feast and put up 100 yards and not even blink.
I know. And, I went back and watched that game, not the entirety of the game, but I watched all of Hopkins' routes and targets. That was on Tannehill. Like he was still getting some separation in a tough matchup against Lattimore and made some really difficult plays that probably shouldn't have been catches. So I still think there's gas left in the tank for Hopkins, Ben. The question is, and I think you and I talked about it on Tuesday as well, in that price range, how often are you going to get to a guy like Hopkins where you have Ridley, you have Keenan Allen, you have DK Metcalf, all of whom are also in high projected games, and then DeAndre Hopkins a few $100s cheaper?
That's more of my issue, but, again, using the tools and looking at this, you're talking about a guy that's probably going to be relatively lost ownership-wise. Spags alluded to. People just, especially in week 2, I think it's even more prevalent of like everybody for the most part is healthy. Like, why am I going to go to the one guy out there, maybe that's in the unknown of the Q tag? And I do get that, but I still end up coming back to when I'm wrestling with these decisions and I use the sim tools this morning as well. A lot of times for that spot, I am getting just a little more money to get to Metcalf or Allen or Ridley, the guys you just talked about. So it's nothing against Hopkins. I'd like to get some exposure to him just because I believe, 10 plus targets is definitely in the range of outcomes, putting it mildly. But at the same time, I do think there are other guys in the same range that I have more exposure to.
Kicks Good said, I can't play Hopkins with a hurt ankle and Tannehill at quarterback. That's kind of what Spags and I were saying, though, which is why we think that this ownership could be really low. That's kind of the whole point here, right? Is that it is a risky play.
Yeah, buy where there's blood in the streets. People want to play the Bengals, and it's a different situation. But if people are going to run away from a guy when he just had 13 targets, which would put him, the upper echelon of any target earners, I think it's just worth being there against. Again, last week the Chargers D gave up an 85% catchable ball rate. They're basically allowing every ball to land where it needed to go. If Tannehill can do that, he's not Tua, he's not Tua in a Miami offense, but it takes very little to kind of succeed then relative to what they put on paper so far.
Yeah, for sure. Ben said Loughy has more product in his hair than a K-pop band. Believe it or not, dude, I hardly have any. So I go to a barbershop and they told me, they're like, listen, dude, don't wash your hair every day. Just use some conditioner. I'm telling you right now. So I have pumped the brakes on the washing the hair, more so conditioner lately, and keeps that nice shine in there. It's a little
get that natural grease going.
I'll tell you what, dude, I kind of like the natural grease.
No, you're supposed to. That's what we apparently been doing our hair wrong for the entire time we were brought up. You're supposed to wash like once a week. Women have had that science for a while.
So I'm saying
the women they don't share this technology with us. They don't tell us.
Ben knows.
I do now. Well, first of all, I was confused because I didn't realize that the person in chat's name was Ben. And I'm like, I did not say that.
No.
I don't even know what you're talking about. But now I realize what's going on.
Yeah. Thanks, Ryan Sheely. All right. Let's get to well, actually, Spags, but and then I'm going to throw this over to you after this. But Spags, what are you doing with Derrick Henry today after what we saw in snap count? I think the whole snap count thing might be a little bit overblown between Tajay Spears last week, given that he only had 3 actual carries. And that game was weird out of the gate. But what are you doing with the backfield, and what are you doing with guys like Treylon Burks, Chigakonkwo, and everything now that Hopkins is expected to be active?
I'm actually getting a little bit of these guys more than I would have thought with the Sims so far. And I think that could kind of speak to the expectation the Chargers are going to put up some points on the other side, but also reasonably priced guys across the board here for Tennessee. Not getting a lot of Henry, though. And I honestly am worried a little bit more. I don't think he's going to trail Spears in snaps per game, but 30 to 34, like that's not even within a range where, Spears got a few more 3rd and long plays. I think what we saw last year with Dontrell Hilliard to start the year at Tennessee kind of portended what's going on with Spears, where they clearly don't want to use Henry as much if they don't have to. If the backup guy goes down and they use Henry more, and then Henry ends up getting a lot more targets, which is what he closed last year out with. But this start, I think I would be really worried about Henry. We still know the ceiling is there. So if I get 3% the Sims, I'm happy to get it. But I think if you're going heavy Henry, I just don't have the faith because it feels like they just want to save him as much as possible, especially I guess they believe they could be a playoff team. And if that's the case, you want Henry to be able to go as long as possible. And just the snap count worries me. Like the touch count is still Henry 100%. But I think the snap count is like, if he's not out there for 70 snaps, he's not going to get as many touches. And that's just sort of the math of things.
And it sucks, Ben, because it feels like every time Henry actually gets targeted, he rips off a 40-yard reception.
Oh, yeah. So again, I know it's week 2, but the only thing that I would push back on a little is, because I agree with all that, is if they can. And I don't know if they can. They blew week 1 and they need this game. So like, I actually think that they might have to say, okay, in a perfect world, we'd be 1-0, we'd be controlling these games, and we don't need to really put an extreme workload on him. Like, you're 2.5 point underdog at home, looking to go 0-2 here. You might have to pump up the volume, even if that's not what you want to do. And I think that in these type of games, they might just have to resort to, we're going to have to give him, traditional Derrick Henry type workload starting right now. So I think he's a good tournament play. I do understand that if they can, they will ease it back, and that does hurt his ceiling, but still Derrick Henry. And I would like to get him in my tournament pool. I forced him in a little bit.
Okay. Forced him in a bit. I like that.
Yeah.
So is he your highest owned Titans player?
Yeah, I think that might just be by default, though. I'm not
getting really anyone else.
I'm really not.
Yeah. What are you doing with the Chargers then, Ben, without Austin Eckler? Obviously, Joshua Kelly is the talk of the town right now. I totally get it, and I anticipate there being some opportunities here in the passing game. He did have 16 carries as well last week. We saw Kellen Moore go with a far more balanced run-heavy-ish approach, whereas last year they had the second lowest run play percentage in the league, ahead of only the Tampa Bay Bucks, who literally could not run the football. So maybe we see Kelly involved more in the passing game as well with Eckler out. But I do have some concerns, depending on how popular he's going to be, that this Titans defense, we know, definitively a run funnel defense. So it might just be a volume thing where Kelly gets there on volume alone, or he disappoints. So how do you see this one as far as ownership? Because without ownership, none of this matters. You just play him.
Yeah, I mean, again, I think some of it is tournament specific. He's going to be popular. I think he should be popular, and it is a volume issue. If he gets even a handful of targets, that's really going to go a long way to raising that floor. We know if he falls in the end zone, he probably really can't hurt you. And if you get 20 total touches, you kind of have to live with that result. Having said all that, I totally understand people that say, you know what, there are other mid-range running backs that I think have some advantageous matchups. They're 1/6 the ownership, and I want to pivot in lineups. I get it, but I think it's pretty aggressive to just say, you know what, I'm not playing Kelly under any circumstance. I think the role is too good to pass up. The Sims love him, and I respect that. So I have plenty of Kelly this week.
Yeah, and for what it's worth, I'm not suggesting that at all. And I'm not saying that you were suggesting that suggesting that. But yeah, it's just one of those weird spots because you take Eckler, who's the most dynamic playmaker on that offense, off the field, and then you shove Kelly into a underwhelming matchup on the ground, Spags. So I think you probably just have to lean on volume here.
Yeah, I mean, that's where I'm landing with it, where if you look at the combined numbers last week, it was 38 intended touches between Eckler and Kelly, 11 intended touches inside the red zone for Eckler and Kelly combined. Like, that's too much usage to ignore. Maybe Isaiah Spiller gets back in the mix, and somehow this is a chance for him to show what he has. But even still, like, what are you going to give him, 10 touches? So then Kelly on paper has 28 left. Like, I think that would be, it's tough to ignore at 5K. So I agree. It's a tough matchup against Tennessee. I also think that people are going to, again, go on that DK app. They're going to see, oh, the DVP against it is so, wow, this Titans D is really tough. I'm not going to play Josh Kelly. If they talk themselves out of Josh Kelly, I think you want to be there. So I'm getting 50% of them with the Sims. I think it's a really good spot. Kelly's not Eckler, so as a result, he should get less work. But if he's going to get 20 touches in a game where Eckler was active, I think that does bode really well for their trust in him. And all it takes is the Chargers moving the ball downfield and getting stopped at the 1 yard line, stopped within the 5, and Kelly can fall into the end zone twice, and that could be his day. So he's got a lot of outs, and I think what he does is allows you to build unique lineups around him. So I can't imagine not getting a lot of Kelly based on what I've seen sim-wise and just what the kind of argument is.
And for what it's worth, right, it's not like Kelly's getting all of the Chargers ownership and they aren't expected to pass. Keenan Allen's still pulling, 20%. Mike Williams at 5,700 only getting 10%. That is enticing. So a bunch of these guys are still getting ownership. But yeah, I mean, look, there's two ways to look at this too, Spags. On one hand, yeah, Kelly, just the volume is there. By the way, I would assume I'm going to have a lot of Kelly too. But also in the passing game, I like that as well. And I think, with Kelly, you could say, well, Tennessee doesn't have the most explosive offense. And until that we see that, the Chargers probably can run more, even if it's not wildly efficient. But also, if they do open things up through the air, you could see some huge games for guys like Allen, Williams. And I mean, outside of that, I don't really know who it's going to be because you saw Donald Parham targeted more than Gerald Everett despite running fewer routes last week.
Yeah, I mean, last year, Tennessee, one of the things that was kind of a hidden gem was you could really attack them downfield and beat them aggressively. And so far, that's the case as well. They're giving up one of the highest deep ball rates in the league on throws of 20+ air yards, an 8% rate, giving up a 0.73 EPA per throw. Last year, they were about a 0.8 EPA per throw. So they're allowing you to create volume or value downfield every single time you are trying to target there. And Keenan Allen's workload looked great in week 1. He was running all over the field, even had 2 carries in that game. So I think for Keenan Allen, this is a really nice role against Tennessee defense that is actually seeming like it's getting worse everywhere, where they were really bad against deep balls last year, but okay everywhere else. So far, again, limited sample size, but they're bad against deep balls still and looking worse everywhere else. So I think maybe that's one way to get different with Kelly, is you make him part of a QB+2, QB+3 as part of the Chargers. And I think there's a chance here the Chargers put up a lot of points, even though Tennessee is more inclined to muck it up. But I think this Chargers O is like showing something here, and I think they could put it on paper in a really meaningful way against Tennessee not looking that good.
Are you on board, Ben, with having some Herbert, Kelly, Williams, or Herbert, Kelly, Allen lineups, and just playing this one uniquely with running back stacked with a quarterback, but also wide receiver and a run back?
So I think that's fine. If I do that, I would want it to be almost a full game stack. I actually think that's, just thinking about, again, tournament construction, like on owner's box, it's a little more my speed, just because I think you can really hone in with Superflex the ability to stack the full game, just because I don't know how much Kelly will be tied to Herbert. And for them to both get there, you might need 5-6 touchdowns on that offense. And you say, okay, Herbert has a great game, but Kelly also runs to win. So I'm looking at an aggressive stack. If I go that route, it's not my preferred build.
All right. We got 3,400 people watching with us today. It's a beautiful thing. Glad you guys are here. I'll ask you, Spags. I asked Ben yesterday. Shot at getting 1,000 likes throughout this show. We need about 467.
It's tough. We got about an hour to go, so we have to double the like count in about an hour. I mean, the only way you know for sure is if you ask. So I'd ask we smash the like button now. We get a read on that number. We go from there. But I would put us at, I don't think we're minus money right now. I think we're like a plus 110 to hit 1,000. So I'd love to see people get that. That's the best bet you can make, Loughy, plus 110, but it's like a 50-50 probability.
I like
that wins
it,
you over the course of time. Yeah.
I think true odds on that are probably like minus 130. So
we're taking a big vig cut.
So I would smash the over on 1,000 likes. Yeah, we did it last week. Ben was pessimistic, as always.
No. That's not what happened at all. I'm 1-0 in these predictions. I said we wouldn't get there by 11 o'clock, and we didn't. That's all I said.
All right.
Check the tape.
This segment got us like 200 or 150 right now. So hit the segment one more time. I know you're good.
Yeah. Appreciate you guys. Look, it's just a subtle reminder. You take a single second. If you like this content, if not, feel free to hit that thumbs down button, but make sure to do it twice. But hey, all we ask, show us a little bit of love around here. It helps us greatly. Otherwise, wouldn't care. But thank you in advance. I think we crush 1,000, boys. I think we get there. We got good people here with us this morning, and everyone's in a good mood on Sunday morning. Sunday afternoon, if we were doing the show, we might not get
come back and hit the dislike 3 hours later.
Yeah, I'd be sitting here because I thought YouTube was super soft I thought it was so soft when they took away the downvote number. If we were doing this at like 2 o'clock, I thought, thank God it's not there anymore. Anthony, $10 super chat. Gentlemen, thank you, Anthony. FanDuel, Chase and Ogletree or Meyer versus Keenan Allen and Musgrave.
I'd go Allen and Musgrave. Yeah.
I'd go Allen and Musgrave.
Yeah, I'd go to the players that Ogletree sounds like a made-up person, so I'm not sure I'd play him.
Yeah, I would go. And Meyer only ran, 9 routes last week or something? 8 routes? He was barely on the field.
With Bourne out, I get it. I just don't know if he's the one. I'm sorry, Myers. Bourne was good last week. He was the one thing that helped
Very
me.
good.
But, I'm a big Meyer fan, Notre Dame guy. I think he's going to be good. I just don't know if immediately he gets that boost for that offense.
We'll have to, I agree. We'll have to speed this up. Some of these games we'll definitely be speeding up, but Baltimore and Cincinnati, yeah, we're 168 likes away. We're crushing 1,000 today, boys. Crushing it. Teddy with a super chat. Cheers, boys. Started drinking early. Hey, can't say I blame you, man.
I was thinking about it. I was like, I didn't want to bring a beer on stream at 10 o'clock East Coast time, but I was like, well, who's really going to care? Mimosa would work. A beer is just too much.
There was one show last year where I forget, it was like a big party, like a big 40th birthday party I was at. I think I told Ben, I got up like coming down to do the show and I had to just crush a beer real quick, not on screen, but I had to crush it. Look, you have to do what you have to do, right?
Hair of the dog, always important.
It was just one. Then I may have taken a nap. All right, Baltimore and Cincinnati. Ben, 46-point total. Heinous game from the Bengals. 82 passing yards for Joe Burrow last week. Lamar Jackson he was efficient, but that offense didn't look great. They're down 2 offensive linemen. They just lost the top safety. They're down J.K. Dobbins for the year. They ran into some real landmines last week, despite that win against Houston. What are you doing now that Mark Andrews is expected back today, and we don't have a firm read on what the backfield opportunities are going to look like?
Yeah, I think it's one of those things. Uncertainty, it's a good thing and a bad thing, but I'm going to embrace it. I think there's a lot of opportunities in this game where it breaks down, and we see Lamar say, okay, I got it. It's my time. I got to run 15 times in this game. I love the over on his rushing yards today. It's at like 44.5. I saw. I was looking at Odd Chopper this morning. I think there's a lot of ways where Lamar is forced by either bad offensive line play, lack of running back production, or just, Flowers look good. Andrews will help. I think this is a Lamar game. Great tournament play. I understand the floor is bad. You're on the road in a divisional game, but man, I still am buying on some Lamar today.
Are you buying, Spags?
I think he's really interesting. The Sims are not giving him to me. So actually that is one where I'm not trying to manually boost too much, but I do want to boost the ROI on Lamar Jackson to try to get some exposure there, because I think Andrews and Jackson are a really strong stack here. It does feel like there are some weaknesses for Cincinnati going against tight ends. They gave up some nice plays to Njoku, not a lot of volume there. But like Ben mentioned, the QB rush stats really stand out, where last week they allowed Deshaun to get some meaningful runs there that were not really on the, they weren't there for him. They allowed it to happen. 0.94 EPA per QB rush is the worst mark in the league after week 1. Also really bad in the red zone, 0.8 EPA per red zone rush. So that all kind of screams Lamar. The part that I'm worried about is Justice Hill did have 5 red zone touches in that game. And I don't know what to do with Justice Hill, because the projection stinks for him, but he did feel like the most 1-to-1 equivalent of a guy like Dobbins. And I think there's a world where Lamar plus, I know I'm all about the QB plus running back plus pass catcher now, but I do think like Lamar plus Dobbins plus Andrews, if Cincinnati puts up points, I think that looks like a really unique stack with not a lot of ownership and also leverage against Zay Flowers.
How are you playing Cincinnati then, Spags? With I'm not reading too much into that. I really expected Joe Burrow to be rusty coming into this game. Not that rusty. Not like 7 punts on the first 7 drives, rusty, but rusty. Another week of practice, home opener, and some injuries on that Cincinnati defense. How much Chase and Higgins are you getting to when we've got a slate that does have a fair amount of really good wide receivers?
So I am getting Burrow stacks. So I'm going to say this is not PG, but up the ass. I'm getting out the ass, up the ass. I'm getting nonstop Burrow stacks so far. And it's Burrow with Chase. It's Burrow with Higgins. It's Burrow with Chase and Higgins. I'm getting Tyler Boyd. I'm getting Irv Smith. I'm getting Mixon. So I think from the sim data so far, it really does feel like Cincinnati is coming up pretty heavily. And again, they disappointed so badly last week. I don't think I've heard the public talk a lot about, I want to be on Cincinnati to get that come up. They're like, well, is Burrow washed? Is he hurt? Or they're not going to play Cincinnati. So I do think I could see the logic here. That's how you get away from essentially chalky Kansas City, Jacksonville game. That's the way you get different from some stuff, and just playing the team that was bad in week 1. That is still a thing that is not quite a skeleton key, but is still really undervalued in terms of main slate DFS. So I'm happy to stack up the Bengals if I get that again in my final Sims run. And I think it makes sense. Absolutely.
And for those of you guys asking, the database for the sim was just getting hammered. We scaled it up, so we should be good. Just so everybody knows, well aware of that. Yeah, it's a good thing. People want to use a good tool. It's just sometimes that happens, but we're good. We're good. We should be fine. How are you stacking this, Spags? If let's say you're going into this, I love taking like a single entry or 3 max approach with this game, because it makes it where you actually have to be like, okay, I have one lineup and I'm playing this game. How are you playing it? Is it with the Lamar single stack run back? Is it a Joe Burrow double stack with a run back? What's your favorite way to play Cincy Baltimore? Because it does have a relatively high total, and it's possible with 2 good offenses that this game does shoot out.
For a single entry, I think I'd be more inclined to go to Baltimore side, just because I don't think they'll make it in most people's single entry. Because for large field tournaments, you're getting so much Cincinnati, it looks like that that's a little bit hard to avoid. But for me, for single entry, I'd want to then go the opposite direction and try to get the best part. So for single entry, I think I would go Lamar with Andrews and possibly Hill, but I think probably not Hill. Lamar and Andrews with the bring back of Chase, I think would be my favorite. Don't mind Higgins either, but the price tag is kind of in a mid-range that I don't really love too much. But I think it'd be, Lamar and Andrews with Chase would be my preferred for a single injury.
Same question for you, Ben.
Yeah, totally agree. I think most people, when you got one lineup or three lineup, you go to what feels more comfortable, and the Cincinnati side definitely feels more comfortable. I would do the opposite. Embrace the variance with Lamar. Know that it can go bad, but that is how you actually can take down some of these top-heavy tournaments. If a guy like that gets nuts, 100-yard bonus is live for Lamar today.
Sounds like you really like. I can usually tell.
It's not even that I'm just going to keep using Gabe Davis. Maybe he's a lazy example, but Lamar is another guy. There's going to be weeks where him and Fields, it's just like, well, it's a tournament within a tournament because they just broke off a 75-yard rushing touchdown. There's not that many guys that can do that, and he's one of them.
It's true. I can just tell when you get excited about guys and you're like, I'm going there anyway.
Yeah, I'm a big Ravens guy. Not really, but I'm declaring myself one now on the show. Let's go Ravens.
Seattle and Detroit. All right. So Seattle was the look ahead line before week 1, Ben, was Seattle +3. After week 1, it moved to 5.5, then back to 4. And just, the typical reaction that you see with something like that. Bad game from them, win over Kansas City for Detroit. 4.5 points now, 47.5 point total. Last year, a full out Seattle Detroit onslaught won the Millie Maker.
Yes.
Full out Seattle Detroit onslaught won the Millie Maker. Could that be the case again today? Metcalf, they got Jackson Smith and Jigba now. You have Kenneth Walker at a discounted price. Tyler Lockett coming off a bad game. And then on the other side, I should point out too that Amon-Ra St. Brown was out that game. I think DeAndre Swift was also out for that game. So it was a lot of Jamal Williams and then a lot of those secondary, tertiary, there you go, guys, options for Detroit. So this is a different looking game than it was last year. But at the same time, there's a lot of weapons on both sides of the field for Seattle and Detroit.
Definitely a lot of weapons. I do think it's a important distinction that you brought up. When you go like game stack to that degree, it's about, to me, total salary, even though the opportunity cost is specific slots. Like if you're paying the premium on a ton of guys, it makes it almost impossible. I like the game. I don't think it's going to be to that level. That was an extreme outlier, but you still got, I think, Metcalf on the outside. I'm sticking with Kenneth Walker. I know it wasn't, you look at his week 1, nothing really stands out, but this is still someone, he had 12 carries. He had 5 targets. He didn't score, nothing crazy. I'm okay with him here. He's a reasonable price tag, sub 6K, and he's in the pool. I'm not really getting to the Seattle stack, though. These are more one-offs or secondary stacks within my lineups.
The Kenneth Walker price tag, to me, Spags, is one of those that just, among many other running backs on the slate, it stands out at 5,800. I do think Detroit has bolstered this run defense too. And we'll talk about Jahmyr Gibbs, who may or may not see an expanded workload after being highly efficient and underused last Thursday. But Kenneth Walker at 5,800, he was the clear guy in week 1. And despite how poorly they played, he still averaged north of 5 yards a carry.
Yeah, the workload Walker got was really hard to ignore there. I am still team Zach Charbonnet over him. I think that does end up shaking out over the course of the year, where Charbonnet to me is just a better, more complete back in every facet. But if they're going to give Walker, 2 red zone touches, 17 touches overall, I think he also had 5 targets in this game. That's a usage he didn't have last year. So I do think Walker probably looks good. I am way more intrigued by the Detroit side, though, if I'm being real about it. Like, I think that what we saw last week, what Seattle gave up, where Puka and Tutu, which sound like fictional characters, but if you, after 1 week of NFL here, they are not on Disney Plus right now. They are, in fact, strafing Seattle's defense.
Yeah, you're so right, though.
That's true.
I've never called them by just their first name in the same sentence. That's awesome.
It sounds incredibly silly, but they went for 240 combined yards. You know who is a player that is Cooper Kupp-esque, who could be both those players rolled into one? Amon-Ra St. Brown. And Amon-Ra is very chalky looking. I think he can put up 40 today, and I think that would not be shocking to me. There are some weapons on Detroit's side where Montgomery plugging away, getting his 20 touches, having some touchdowns. That's in play. Laporta looks good. Josh Reynolds had really good usage out wide as well. So I think you can do a stack, but I think if I were going to say one player can obliterate the slate, just, off the top of my head, I think it's Amon-Ra, and I'm worried to not be at least with the field on him because it's 20% projected ownership, and I think he could make anybody who didn't play him absolutely regret not being with the field.
How about you, Ben?
Yeah, he's just, again, I thought he quietly was a factor against Kansas City. Didn't really even tap into that ceiling. No, of course, weather issues at home here. Laporta, I think, is a good pay down option, but this is a Lions team that we certainly can't ignore. A healthy total, slight favorites, a competitive game. it's a good one. Target rich environment, and that starts with St. Brown.
Your favorite way to play this?
That's the bigger problem. I know the players that I like here. I'm just not sure exactly what to do with either of the quarterbacks. I am treating this more as one-offs. Like I have my stacks and I'm trying to get St. Brown in there and maybe twist it with Kenneth Walker on the other side. I don't know if that's going to work. Maybe you do need to stack it up and go to Goff and get Laporta and St. Brown and these guys together and run it back. I'll probably explore a little of that. I'm not done building, but right now it's mostly non-QB on both Owner's Box and DraftKings for me. Not really getting to the quarterbacks.
Okay. Spags, your favorite way to play this is I'm on St. Brown, obviously, right? Like he's your favorite play in this game. How much?
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm going to functionally have more Montgomery because of the price tag and usage and the fact that should make it come up. But I do think if I could play Goff with Montgomery and Amon-Ra, I'd feel pretty good. Goff with Amon-Ra and Reynolds, I would feel pretty good about. Same thing. Like Amon-Ra +1, I think would be a configuration I like a lot. But I think this is a game where I think Detroit's going to obliterate him personally. I might regret this one because you never want to make that's hard of a take here because it's football. Volatility kicks in every time. But like with what they gave up last week, I think Seattle's D might be one of the worst in the league. And I don't think it was the Rams. I think it was them.
Of all of the bad teams, bad performances that you saw in week 1, do you think Seattle might be the team? Sounds like you're saying might be the team that's actually bad.
Chicago's D is also incredibly bad. I think they're one that's going to be easy to attack a lot, but Seattle's D, I mean, I can't believe Matthew Stafford's that good. Like Matthew Stafford looked like the best quarterback who's ever played football last week. And I just don't think that's the case for a guy whose spine is being held together by duct tape and a hope and a dream. I don't think is going to be the case for every week. And I guess the other one that'd be really bad, but like Pittsburgh looked bad, but that's against the Niners.
You don't say.
Sorry to bring up an old wound.
It's like,
Ben, how many touches do you think we could realistically project for Jahmyr Gibbs today?
Yeah,
people want to play this guy.
People, of course, people want to play him. He's exciting. I think the bigger problem for Gibbs, kind of echo what Spags is saying, is I think he might be better off if the Lions aren't good. Like if the Lions are in full control, I'm not sure how that is like, oh, let's start giving the ball to Gibbs. It's just going to be, let's salt this away. Let's lean on our run game. And yeah, maybe he gets 10 total touches again. I think that might be what we see once again. If they're way down, maybe that target share really increases. But in a game like this, I'm not sure that is the script I foresee.
Okay. Green Bay and Atlanta. Oh, man. All right. So Green Bay, decisive win last week. I don't take too much away from Lowe's performance. Like I thought they were good. I also I love you guys. I love Aaron Jones. I think Aaron Jones is the man. And those 2 huge catch and runs that he had, what a difference that makes. Everything. It was like, what, a 57-yard reception, a 35-yard, changed everything about that game. But he's out. A.J. Dillon couldn't hold a candle to Aaron Jones. Now, we can talk about what we want to do with him with Aaron Jones out of the backfield. Patrick Taylor's back up, and we can get into it. But no Christian Watson, no Aaron Jones. Your two, I can say this. I was going to say arguably, but I can say your 2 best playmakers, Aaron Jones and Christian Watson, won't be on the field today, Spags. Yeah, that's it. Atlanta could just try and bludgeon them once again on the ground. Better offensive line than Chicago had. I don't see them falling behind like Chicago did, where they had to abandon the run. I also think Atlanta made enough improvements defensively to where they're not just going to completely collapse. 18 pass attempts for Ritter last game. Half of them went to Bijan Robinson and Tyler Algier. This is one of those spots where I don't know how much I love the fantasy value of it because Atlanta could just look to churn clock, run the ball as much as possible, and then I still have to decide between Robinson and Tyler Algier.
Yeah, I'm with you on that page. I think Atlanta, the changes they made in the offseason, the signings they made, they're one of the worst defenses in every analytic I look at, last year. And then I kind of had planned in my mind, like they really shored up, at least theoretically, with the money they gave at all those positions, like the things that were their worst spots. Then week 1, they come out, look like an entirely different defense. And then we see a game again in week 2 inside a dome where we have barely a 40-point over-under in this game. So I think it's a defensive-minded matchup. I think it's one where you see maybe one kind of gimmicky red zone touchdown for Bijan Robinson, one sledgehammer touchdown for Tyler Algier. And then the hope on the other side is that Dillon can maybe do the same thing and get 1 or 2 in there. But this just screams like ugly game to me. I think Atlanta, like Loughy was mentioning, like they don't want Ritter to beat them. They want Ritter to be a guy who kind of game manages and keeps it close to the pocket. 3.2 ADOT in all his throws last week. Like you're not stretching downfield unless you have to. So I think Green Bay, I love Jordan Love. There's going to be better weeks for him, I think, especially when Christian Watson's back in. This one, though, I think is where the rubber kind of meets the road for two teams that I think looked pretty good in different ways in week one. And I just don't see it being an outlier effort for anybody besides maybe the running backs.
How about you, Ben?
Yeah, I feel the same way. Again, this is a game that the philosophy doesn't mesh well with DFS. Like Atlanta doesn't want to be a team that is doing crazy stuff. They want to control the game and drag down whoever they're playing. And it's so far, they won't be able to do this to everybody. But in week one, they were able to do that. I think they might be able to do that with Green Bay. And that just renders the game not useless, but certainly not appealing.
And the other thing is that Green Bay still has to prove to us that the run defense is vastly improved from where it was. Last week, I don't take enough away from that to be convinced, right? But Ben, what about Atlanta? Or I'm sorry, what about Green Bay, where you've got no Jones? So now you're going to have A.J. Dillon at, we have him around 14.5%. Luke Musgrave is a discount to, oh, by the way, I should have pointed out, I mentioned it all week. I think Sam Laporta, who played 83% of snaps last week, ran a route on like 73% of dropbacks and caught all 5 of his passes at 3% ownership, as at least worth considering against Seattle in this game if nobody's going to touch him and everyone's going to go to a similarly priced Musgrave. But where do you want to go with Green Bay here now that they're missing 2 top playmakers?
Again, I still don't think you can overstate how bad the game could be. Could be an ugly game. The one thing that's nice, though, price points keep these guys with what they need to get you there at a lower than some of the elite players. So if you're in a jam, I have no problem paying down for Musgrave at tight end. A lot of people are going to do that. He's probably cash viable at this point. And then Dillon is in the bucket with Kenneth Walker, and we'll talk about White and Kelly and those guys as backs that are going to have roles sub 6K. I don't really believe in him as a player per se. I don't love his game, but he's not to be ignored. I have some, but not jamming him by any stretch.
What about you, Spags, on the Green Bay side?
I think Musgrave looks interesting, though. I have to point out, I think people still feel like Musgrave is sneaky. And I saw some chats earlier on of like, hey, trust me, you got to play Luke Musgrave. And it's like, he's not this unknown quantity now. Like he hasn't been since like July where like I was really stoked to be getting him in some drafts in the 18th round in best ball again. And then it's like, oh, people are now promoting him and talking about him nonstop. And now the public's caught up. So he's going to be projected for 14% ownership on Stochastic, upwards of 20%, some other sites out there. So I think Musgrave, the issue is that you're just running in potentially to a buzzsaw. He has a midday and Travis Kelce goes off, if Andrews goes off, if somebody else, if Kincaid goes off at a similar price tag. But I still like Musgrave as a player, good deep target. I just don't know they're going to get the best results downfield against an Atlanta team that's probably going to really try to keep the ball in front of him. But he's like Ben mentioned, if you have 3,200, you need a tight end. He's the play, but it's just, you're going to be with a lot of the field. And I know there's a ton of upside there. And everybody else here, besides Dillon, like I want to get double the field on Dillon. I think it looks like with the sim so far. Besides that, I think these guys are all just kind of whatever besides chalky Musgrave.
The hope with Dillon is he just gets like all the work.
He needs it.
Yeah, he does. It's not that he's not capable as a pass catcher, but it's clearly not his forte. What I don't understand, Spags, is this guy, is built to be a bruiser and someone that just eats defensive lines up. We didn't really see it. We haven't seen a lot of that. I mean, 13 for 18 last week, or 13 carries for 19 yards. And last year, I thought he'd be a lot more efficient than he was. But it may just be one of those instances similar to Joshua Kelly, where even though Kelly's on a better team and a better offense, where you're like, hey, the top dog is out. And Dillon's not underpriced, though, is the other thing, right? Like, would you say this is a fair price point, or would you say he is underpriced?
I think it looks fair. I mean, if you're saying, in week one, there are 29 intended touches for the running backs overall, 7 in the red zone. If Dillon's going to absorb 90% of those at 5,900, I think that's a fair price. He feels a little bit more like people were comparing Josh Kelly to Jamal Williams, who was a guy that kind of made sense last week against Tennessee, didn't quite get there, but got a lot of work. I think if we're going to say one guy's closer to Jamal Williams this week, it's actually not the guy playing Tennessee. I think it's more likely to be A.J. Dillon, just kind of getting a lot of work, maybe not doing a lot of it, but I think there's a more live chance for him to score 2 touchdowns than probably Jamal had last week.
All right. Ben, any other thoughts on this game, both sides?
Not really, no.
Chicago and Tampa Bay, Ben. All right. Justin Fields, you going back to the well here? They're 2.5-point dogs. I figured you would be against
Come on
Tampa.
now.
Tampa missing a few guys in that secondary. These Tampa linebackers, just this Tampa defense in general, feels like a spot where they could tamp down on this Fields rushing attack, but maybe you feel differently. That concerns me a little bit. Those guys fly to the ball, and that is one issue that I have. But tell me why you see it a little differently, because I assume you do.
It's not even that I see it differently. I really respect guys like Fields' ability to just kind of, I can't overstate how talented they are. They can just get loose. They can make things happen. And there's no real defense for that. It doesn't mean they get there every time. We saw him look. Chicago, I know Pittsburgh was in a whole different category of disturbing, but Chicago was really rough last week. They did not do a lot good. But having said this, you get a very competitive matchup here with the Tampa Bay defense that I still have some questions about. I don't think that they're just everything is fixed, and even with Baker on the other side. So I will go back to Fields. I think he's a great tournament play. You've got Moore, you've got Komet. I guess you got Mooney. You've got options, or you could run, very skinny stacks, or just even Fields alone if you want to be very different. Also a second quarterback on owner's box that I'm exploring. So I'm not giving up on Fields after 1 week.
Are you giving up on Fields after 1 week, or are you staying away for one more week, Spags?
I think I don't mind the matchup. I think it's a better one for the pass game that is going to be for the run game. Like Loughy mentioned, this has always been kind of a historical strength of the Bucs, but so far this year too, a negative 0.4 EPA per rush, they're clamping down. Also negative 0.2 EPA per QB rush, and those tend to always be closer to the positive side. So when you see a negative, it does stand out. The way you beat Tampa Bay, at least based on what they put on tape, again, very small sample size stuff with what happened last week, but they got crushed downfield by Minnesota, gave up a 3.05 EPA per target, which is going to level out. Like, that's not possible to always contribute 3 points downfield every single time you're targeting, but it does look like a weak spot. So I think you could see Moore have a bounce back day. Mooney actually looked pretty good last week, and it wouldn't shock me to see him turn one of his 4 targets into a touchdown here. But I have a hard time trusting the overall picture, because I think, much like Atlanta, Green Bay, I think this is a game where, at least on the Tampa Bay side, the way they win is trying to ugly it up as best they can. And I think the Bears, historically, and what we saw, at least on tape so far, feels like they're willing to play ugly and not play to their full potential with the play calling.
Do you have any guys you really like for Chicago, even if it wasn't Justin Fields?
I could take a stab on Mooney at cheap. Moore's price tags come down enough. You got to expect the volume's going to go up there. Only 2 targets in week 1, caught both of them. So I guess Mooney or Moore, but neither are priority plays for the slate. I sim-wise are definitely not coming up, so I'd have to go in and kind of force them.
Yeah, I feel the same way. Just, this is a game, my last thoughts on it, it's just one of those, it's not on people's minds for kind of that top upper echelon. But you asked me on Tuesday, Loughy, couple games that could be totally under the radar. And I think that Chicago and Tampa is in fact one of those games. So,
both sides?
Yeah, both sides.
Yeah, the Tampa side's more interesting, I think.
Yeah, I agree.
Rachaad White, man. I mean, last week.
Let's go.
Last week was ugly, but he had 19 total looks. He got all of the snaps almost. It's just listen, I went back and was watching some of this. He missed some pretty big holes. There were some opportunities there that were missed for sure. Right. I get that. And then you just saw that. I found it so ridiculous though, Spags, that people were like, man, we saw what Swift did. Rachaad White might just be terrible. And it's yeah, he might be, but Eagles have the best offensive line in the league. They were opening up the Red Sea for Swift was awesome. Don't get me wrong. He's patient. He was decisive. He was explosive, all of that. But I'm willing to go back to a little bit of Rachaad White one more time if we expect him still to be the bell cow. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. And I agree with your Swift take as well. I think Rashad Penny, if you gave him 25 touches in every snap, he would have had a comparable game too. But I don't want to keep bearing the Swift stuff, because clearly we are on the wrong side of history right now. Rachaad White, though, the volume, hard to ignore. I think that's always going to be something where certainly can flip. Sean Tucker looked a little better with the 7 touches he had, or intended touches he had, compared to the 19 that Rachaad White had. But I could see the case going back to White. I think at the price point as well, he's a pivot to Josh Kelly. He's a pivot to A.J. Dillon. He's a guy you could add on in addition to those guys to give you higher price receivers. So Rachaad White, I think, is kind of a necessary evil. But I like the overall attack too. Like Mike Evans getting open downfield, facing against a Chicago team here who's really bad, giving up 0.8 EPA out wide, also getting strafed on every single drop back, every single pass. I think it looks really good for a Bucs stack. I don't think this is going to hold the entire year, but I think Baker is looking okay enough. And Evans and Godwin, we know what they are. White, we'll see. At least if nothing else, he's a pure volume back. This is a really live spot for them just because of how bad Chicago is. So I'll have a lot of all these guys, I think, today.
By the way, guys, I just got a message from our developers. Hold off on refreshing. We just have a lot of people using the Sims tool right now. Obviously, a fix is in place. It'll be fine. Hold off for like 15 minutes because everyone's refreshing at the same time. Hold off for like 15 minutes and it would be fine, 100% fine. So just hold off 15 minutes. We still got plenty of time, right? We still got an hour and 45 minutes. So hold off on that. I know it's a great tool. I was trying to run the Sims. I was trying to run some Sims right now during the show too. Hold on for like 15 minutes and we'll be back in action. Everything will be fine. Just a little PSA out there for everybody wondering who used the owner's box promo, link in the description chat, all of that to get the free week, or are you using the free month or whatever it was, or purchase Sims, 15 minutes. We'll be back in business. We'll be ready to go. All right. Thank you for your patience, by the way. For me, Ben, on the Tampa side, my two favorite options are going to be Mike. I think this matchup suits Mike Evans particularly well. And Spags kind of touched on that. Rachaad White as well. I do like this Tampa side. I just don't like them as much of a stack, I think, as you guys do. I like this more as a one-off team, personally.
Yeah, that's fair. I really don't like Baker in life, but he has so many perfect pieces that I think by default, like if I'm like, well, White might get there and Godwin makes sense and Evans is a threat. Well, if a couple of them get there, Baker by default can't be that bad. Now, considering I like Fields more than other people, it's easier for me to have runbacks from Tampa, which is nice. So I'm very comfortable with those guys. I think it's pretty easy for me. You have price points that are very gettable. You have different positions if you want to go to a running back or a couple wide receivers. And I like Tampa quite a bit. So I think this is a good game to target. Lower total. You don't need to go crazy because I don't think the field will, but I'm getting to Tampa today. And I did have one thing real quick, Loughy. We had a couple of super chats and they're kind of related to this because I think it's in that same price point. Riley asked us, Riley Cooper, actually, maybe it's the real one. Any love for over 5 receptions for Calvin Ridley? Grab cakes in football. That's what Maryland does, of course, from Wedding Crashers. I like Ridley today. I think he could absolutely go over that prop. I don't know if you guys have any thought on that.
Yeah, I guess.
Feels like he would have to.
Yeah, he's going to be busy. And then James said, best 5K player at the flex, not Josh Kelly. That's a tough.
Who's a favorite, what, 5K player at the flex, not Josh Kelly?
Yeah, 5K or less. Maybe like Nico Collins. We haven't talked about Houston yet.
Yeah, we will.
Yeah, Nico makes sense. Yeah, the workload's
Zay
great for him. Good matchup.
Zay in that game that could shoot out is 5K as well.
Yeah, there's some spots. But that's it for me with Tampa. I think just some good playable guys there in a close game.
All right. Spags, if you're stacking this game, are you stacking it from the Tampa Bay side with runbacks on the other?
I might not even get a run back, but I think it's Evans and White and Baker for me. But Evans in particular, like I'm getting more Godwin right now, and I would like to flip that. I think this is a spot again where Evans can really get open downfield and have one of those days. And Baker, we know historically the flaw has been that he presses it downfield too much. Only had 4 deep targets in that game, so that's like pretty much an average amount in week 1. But that's enough for Mike Evans to get there. So I would favor Evans and Baker, and then tack on White.
What about?
What's
I'm
that?
sorry. I was just say Mega Mind Genius or Incredibly Dumb. Tampa stack with Fields as the run back on owner's box.
Yeah, I love that because the Tampa stack's not going to be insanely expensive either.
No, and then you could get Fields rushing upside.
That's still only 35% filled, man. That is nuts. 50K up top.
Oh yeah.
I'm telling you, if you guys aren't on owner's box yet, there's going to be overlay on this contest without a shadow of a doubt. You're getting all of our NFL tools free for the entirety of the week. Sims, contest generator, ownership, projections, top stack tool, all of our showdown, best showdown tools you're going to find out there for sure. Premium Discord, it's 35% filled right now. How much is Baker on Owner's Box?
It wasn't bad. I was playing around with that build this morning.
6K. Fields is 7,100. And you have 50K here. There's no defense either. So there's no defense whatsoever. Yeah.
I'm telling you. Again, large field tournament. That's the type of build no one's going to go to.
It's very doable. It leaves you enough because it's 2 flex and a super flex with 50K in cap. And Mayfield's not expensive at all. Mike Evans is 5,900.
That's a steal.
That 5,900 is an absolute steal on Owner's Box. Yeah. All right. I like that. I like that thinking, Ben. Link in the description and in chat, guys. $500 first match deposit bonus, super flex contests, 50K up top. It's 35% filled, and you're getting all our tools free for the first week. I mean, come on.
Actually, Loughy, can I give a quick parable here? Because I think it is important.
Oh, I like parables. Yes.
Yeah,
Let me hear about trains running on time.
So it'll be better than that one. No dictators involved in this one, but no, like our old pal Rinpack always used to tell me that there was a former partner site at Stochastic that would have overlay every single night. And you know what Rinpack, one of the top DFS players in the world who would crush on DraftKings, crush on FanDuel would do? He'd be playing on that site every night because that's what helped him keep the bankroll going for all these other sites. Because when there's overlay, when there's less sharp fields, when there's, especially with Owner's Box, a site that's not figured out yet, you're just going to do a lot better with it. So frankly, if I get dusted in DraftKings this week, I'm going to go back over to Owner's Box, I think, and give it a shot because overlay plus that, all that stuff, like you're doing yourself a disservice, especially if you have the Sims tool of not throwing something in there.
No question.
I think that always stuck out to me.
Yeah. Dead money means that you have a much easier shot of making money. Yeah.
Yep.
And that's all that matters. Ben, you mentioned we hadn't gotten to Indy and Houston yet. Here we are. Zach Moss is healthy, not on the injury report. Deion Jackson was a colossal disaster last week. I mean, if you could take a running back performance and just say, like, give me the worst performance a running back could have, I want to see that in real time. You could go back and it appears that Deion Jackson accomplished that. I think he lost 2 fumbles in that game, generated nothing either on the ground or through the air. Not like the offensive line helped him greatly, but what are your thoughts? Do you think Zach Moss takes over as the lead back today against Houston?
I do. I will say that Antonio Gibson would kill for Deion Jackson's performance last week because he was beyond snowflake on the app. They're a whole nother icon.
What do you have, 3 touches and a lost fumble?
He had negative, like deep into the game, negative points.
Yeah,
which
not
is
great.
frowned upon.
But I'm saying from a volume standpoint, to do as little as possible, Deion Jackson checked all those boxes.
Oh, there's no argument there. When you're getting receptions, you're still like, whatever. We don't need to waste time on him. Zach Moss is back. He should assume, I think, a pretty healthy workload, but this is still a team that I think we're figuring out the identity. Of course, this is Spags' account, so I won't waste our time with me saying it, but with Richardson and Pittman looked good. I think that the Colts do have some more dynamic options than saying, okay, Zach Moss is back. We have to give him the ball 20 plus times and have him run into the line against a Houston team that is now the favorite in this game.
Spags?
I mean, I think this is a tremendous spot for the Colts and Anthony Richardson in particular. Feel very strongly about that. So I'm watching every Colts game now because I've made my bed. I have to watch every single one fully. I had it on the laptop, had the 4-screen on Sunday Ticket on the big TV. And I got to tell you, I have not seen a running back look as bad as Deion Jackson did, like for the eye test as well in that game, where he was like, they took him out at one point for Hull, then Hull hurt his knee. And they were like, I guess we got to go back to Deion Jackson. They do not want to play that guy. That said, like it is week 1. They were definitely slow rolling the attack overall, where it was a lot of short throws for AR, particularly targeting the right side. I think what you start to see is this offense expand a little bit more downfield, expand a little bit more in terms of where AR is throwing. And that's going to make the run game, I think, less of we have to give him 20 touches no matter what situation. So I like the Colts. I'm not getting them sim-wise. I'm going to force my way to some Michael Pittman, going to force my way to some AR here, but I like the spot overall. And I think low total here. This is only a 40-point over-under. I think this can shoot out because I do think both defenses are not that good, and both QBs as rookies, I think, are more ready to have a ceiling day. AR was QB3 last week. I think Stroud, too, kind of has a little more upside than people realize.
I don't blame you whatsoever, but least shocking thing I've ever heard come out of your mouth is that you like Richardson and are going to force some Colts in this week.
I think, the projections haven't caught up. The markets haven't caught up to the potential here. And what if that Jags D is really good? Then we get two things, right? Where that Chiefs game slows down and then the Colts are actually good.
Sure.
Maybe.
I get it.
I like that.
Ben, I also found it interesting that last week, CJ Stroud, I thought he acquitted himself well enough. It was a tough matchup in Baltimore on the road, like Baltimore home opener, first ever. He didn't make mistakes, right? By the way, this is not me advocating for playing CJ Stroud, but I do think if you wanted to take some shots on like a Collins in large field or a Woods in large field, both of them saw double-digit targets last week. I don't think that's insane. The backfield is what actually worried me a little bit more than anything else, because Dameon Pierce only out-touched Singletary on the ground 12-7, and Mike Boone was functioning as a pass-catching back in week 1. That should worry people more than anything else. The reason I asked you about Zach Moss is because last year Houston was gutted on the ground every single week of the season, and if Zach Moss ended up getting all of those, I think Zach Moss could be one of those guys where you look back on today and go, oh, he had 40 rushes on 12 attempts. No. And no touchdowns. Or it's like Zach Moss did everything for the backfield and it shot out like Spags said, and he found the end zone twice. I'm worried on the Houston side that Dameon Pierce might not be the guy in the sense that people anticipated him being coming into the season.
And that's very possible. I think both of these teams, and this is what happens when you have, quarterbacks that are this young, are discovering what works and what doesn't. I really don't think there's a way to drill down and say, okay, we know for a fact this is the identity of the Colts. I don't think they know that. So in that way, it's good to buy. You see this, we have a ton of people watching, and I see some familiar faces from my golf streams. We talk about this all the time with new golfers, where we're just like, there is a chance that this guy just might be amazing. And now is the time to blindly buy, because we don't know his game just yet. And Spags, you said this, like the Sims and all these things, they might not be able to recognize that Richardson and Pittman are still a lethal combo. And in time that will factor in. So I don't mind going to the Colts and saying there's just a lot of opportunity here, even though we might find out that the best days are already ahead of them. And that's a little scary too. A lot of downside.
Spags, where are you at in the Houston backfield?
Houston backfield, I think, doesn't look great to me. I'm not getting a little taste of Pierce, but not a lot. My fear for Pierce is that, he and Walker were kind of similar last year. We talked about Walker earlier, where they're leaning in on him. Pierce really wasn't as great as I think fantasy players want to believe he was last year, where the success rate was low, EPA per rush was low. You really couldn't even use him in the pass game. So far to start the year, they're trying it a little bit more, but he looks kind of just as mid. He shakes, like he's really shaky, avoids tackles really well, gets downfield. So they have these plays that sometimes add up fantasy wise, but for a team like the Niners pedigree staff, which is what DeMeco Ryans, the play caller, all the guys on the Texan staff now are Niners descendants, are Shanahan guys. Those teams obsess over the analytics. So I do think you might see things move around more, where Singletary getting more use, I think in the pass game would be the best for them. But like Loughy mentioned, Boone's in the mix. So I wouldn't trust any of them. I do trust Nico Collins, though. I think that he looks pretty good, was used really well. I reviewed all the numbers on Tuesday on stream on Splash Play and was shocked to see 11 targets for Nico, how well he was used downfield. Stroud created a lot of value at Ohio State for those receivers. Obviously, some of them were great. JSN being one of them, Marvin Harrison last year being one of them. But he's going to make Nico look a lot better than I think he is. And I think Nico is one of those guys where he shouldn't be under 5K. He probably is going to be closer to 6K in a couple weeks. Nico I'd be willing to go to, more than the field for sure.
What about, I got to ask, because Noah Brown's on the IR. Any interest in Tank Dell as a yards after the catch potential guy at dirt cheap price point?
I think Mechie eats into that role enough where I don't trust Dell. Like, I think the event that would make Dell soar up would be Woods being out of the mix. Woods is just taking up too many routes, too many targets, and then having Mechie back in, I think that chops it a little bit. But, Dell's cheap enough where you can make the case. I would rather take what I believe is a more solid role in Nico. But if Mechie doesn't get in, Mechie's play is maybe less than 10 snaps because he is coming off leukemia. It's possible, I guess you could say, that Dell could be the one who rises there.
I think it will be, personally, I'm not saying it's a big game. I think it will be Dell, though, that gets the work today. We'll see. I don't know. He's just looked like somebody that was kind of NFL ready from the jump, particularly on a team that doesn't have a stacked wide receiver core. Ben, what are you doing with Houston outside of what we've discussed already?
Not much, honestly. I think that going to one of their pass catchers, particularly Nico Collins or Woods, is the extent of it for me. Maybe as a bring back if I get to Richardson, or just maybe as a sub 5K guy where I don't have another option.
The Giants are 4-point favorites against Arizona. By the way, guys, stick around. Live Before Lock's coming up next. They're taking you all the way up to 1. So no other place to be right now than right here. We got you covered all the way up until 1 p.m. Eastern kickoff. Giants are 4-point favorites, Ben. This has moved. They were at 5.5 at 1.4 now. Ugly game last week. I mean, put it this way. Anything that could have gone wrong did go wrong for them. I thought Washington didn't look great against Arizona. Not shocked there. But the way I put it earlier in the week and in the betting video on our Odd Shopper channel, help us get to 100K on that Odd Shopper channel, by the way. I'll tell you how to get a lot of free money in a second, too, over on Caesars. But the way I put it was the Giants are nowhere near as good as people thought they might have been last year. But I do think the Cardinals are every bit as bad as we expect them to be this year. And I'm not looking at last week's game and thinking maybe the Cardinals have something.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. The Giants, to me, was just it's a throwaway game. Doesn't mean that it's not good, doesn't mean they don't have issues, but like the game just got away from them. It doesn't mean that they're suddenly awful. I wasn't overly high on them coming into the year. This is a much better spot for obvious reasons.
Oh, Bug Boy, by the way, yeah, I need a little more time to go over the reviews for the podcast.
On the list.
It's on, don't worry, I promise. We just had a ton going on. I appreciate all of you guys leaving reviews on the podcast, checking out all of our podcast exclusive content, the single entry 3-max stuff. The afternoon slate, Greg and I broke that down. It's 25 minutes. So if today rolls around at 2:00 and you're going, this doesn't look great, we got you. You're not going to find that analysis elsewhere. We got a full afternoon breakdown over on podcast, whether it's Apple Podcasts, Spotify, all that good stuff. If you're not there yet, check it out. But I need a little bit more time to review those, and then we'll announce the winner for the free year of NFL Tools Sims Max package and the free months as well. So I didn't forget about you guys, I promise. All right. What are you doing with the Giants, Spags?
I think that Daniel Jones is in an interesting bounce back spot. There's some weaknesses in Arizona's D, which Sam Howell, I think, showed a little bit of. 1.1 EPA per QB rush, and the Cardinals is a pretty outlier number there. Obviously, Daniel Jones ran so much in that Cowboys game. Actually, I think led the league in QB rushes with 13 last week. So that workload should be there for him. I still don't love the Giants, though. I kind of saw some whiffs of, obviously, as Loughy can attest, the Eagles defense does have some tendencies that they're, I think, bringing over to the Cardinals with Jonathan Gannon being the head coach. And I think they kind of looked like Eagles, not Eagles adjacent, even like Eagles with a 50% success rate kind of thing. Like they were not as good, but I thought they showed something against the Commanders that if the Giants are as inept as we saw on Sunday night, and it was raining, it was a monster, there's like a lot of things that could be bad that might not carry over. There's a chance the Cardinals D is just live. And if that's the case, I don't hate playing him against the Giants. I still think Jones can get back, but I hate Saquon. He's one of the most mid running backs in the league. He just gets volume. He doesn't do anything extra on top of it.
Whoa, okay. Coming in hot, huh?
I've been anti Saquon for like a year now. And he showed what he was last year. This year, I think he's going to show even more so. I just don't believe in the Giants very much. And I think they have too many guys eating just enough off the plate. And it's just Daniel Jones or bust. And I think the Cardinals, if they're better, could be in the hunt. And I would not play the Giants in a survivor league. I can tell you that.
I think I like Barkley a little bit more than you do because of the volume. But I get what you're saying. Like, I understand what you're saying. It's not, I don't think you're wrong. I think you might, I think maybe taking it a little far. But I don't think you're totally wrong.
Well, if the game script doesn't go his way or he faces a tough defense, he just completely disappears like he did last week.
For sure.
That's what I hate about him. Is you.
Well, they also can't protect Daniel Jones, and he ends up rushing the ball more than anyone else on the team because he's running for his life. Like, that's the thing. Does Arizona have even 20% the pass rush that Dallas has? That's my one question.
No, they blitzed at a 28% rate, 18% pressure rate in week one, only stuffed the run 7% of time. So nothing there is saying a team that's going to really clamp down. But if the game planning is good and Jonathan Gannon is a dude, like I think there was a lot of things the Giants did in week one that you can kind of squeeze a little bit more life out of, so to speak. So I don't know. I think the Giants are live for an upset, but I would still be willing to play Daniel Jones.
BP. What I meant by that was that I think the volume could be enough with Barkley. While I don't agree with disagree with Spags' overall take, I think the volume in a spot like this, and a far less talented defensive line for Arizona could be enough for Barkley. That's what but I understand why that sounded like me just teetering on the fence. Ben, final thoughts on the Giants and then Arizona, because we gotta speed this up.
Yeah, I don't have a ton. Again, I think that Waller, Saquon, Danny Dimes, if you want to be different. Then on Arizona side, I have some Hollywood Brown. That's about it. And Cardinals defense, I agree. When you can, Daniel Jones can do bad things out there. We've seen that time and time again.
Any interest in Arizona players today, Spags? Any James Conner?
Yeah, Connor, I'm getting about half the field based on the ownership projection we have on Stochastic, around 15%. A little taste of Michael Wilson for some reason. I guess the $3,300 price tag stands out there, but not loving it. The Giants D, though, did, I think, look pretty bad. Like, Dallas is really efficient. So there's a chance the Cardinals hang in this one and I think get some results, but I like chalky James Conner doesn't really do it for me.
For sure. By the way, guys, Caesars, I tell you every time, 2 reasons to sign up on more sports books than you're at right now. One, you don't want to be the guy that pulls the line from your favorite book and ends up getting the wrong one and losing to the hook every week. There's no worse feeling than that, to be like someone that knows more about betting than you after the game. You're like, man, yeah, I had him at -6.5 and they only won by 6. And he's like, well, yeah, but it was 5.5 here and it was 6 here. What the hell are you doing? Right. Also, free money. Caesars right now, a lot of free money they're giving out. They're trying to compete with these bigger sports books on the online space. DraftKings FanDuel. They've been around brick and mortar style a very long time, but when it comes to the online space, it's highly competitive. No question. They're giving you $250 in bonus bets when you sign up and put $50 on any game. For me, I had I had Atlanta money line plus 106. I still like Arizona spread at -2. I do. I still like the or -2.5. What's that?
Atlanta, right?
What did I say? Arizona again? Sorry. I keep saying, yeah, Atlanta. I grabbed the money line in the video earlier this week on Wednesday. I still like them to win by a field goal here. That would be my spot. The best thing, though, you sign up with the link in the description or in chat. You click it. If you have an ad blocker, turn that off, because this one's weird if you have an ad blocker like I do. You sign up, confirm your identity, takes a minute, get $50 down on whatever you want. For me, it would be Atlanta. If you win and you get to $250 in bonus bets paid out in $50 bonus bets. If you lose, doesn't matter, because you got a windfall, $250 in bonus bets coming your way. It's not like, hey, you only get this if you lose. No, it's not a, insurance type thing. It's you get it one way or the other. No reason not to. So best money out there is free money. You're getting that. You're taking advantage of all the bonuses out there to get a bankroll boosted out of the gate. And you're also getting better odds and making sure that you can shop them. Someone the other day in a comment to one video was like, hey, well, it's not, you can't just withdraw the money. First of all, you have to be a moron to think that a sports book is going to be like, sign up so we can give you $300 that you take immediately off of the site. Why would anyone ever do that? These are better, though, as far as bonus bets go, because there's no playthrough. If you win your bonus bets, you can immediately take your money off the site. With the other sites where it's like this much in site credit, you might have a 5x playthrough. So yeah, these are a lot better. You got to be 21 years old to gamble. If you're someone who has a gambling problem, please call or text 1-800-GAMBLER. But yeah, $50 and the $250. Take advantage of that. Best way to get money is the freeway, and best way to get the right bets is to make sure you're on all books. All right, Spags, San Francisco and the Rams. I want you to break this down on both sides for me, if you don't mind, since we're running a little short here and we got 4,200 people watching with us. Really interesting game. I'm sure you can't wait to talk about Tutu and Puka.
Of course, Disney's hottest new show, Tutu and Puka, the duo that are sweeping the nation. I am not a believer in these guys this week. I know that it's fun. I worry too people are going to chase them. It does seem like we have 12% projected ownership there, 18% across the industry for Puka. This is a tough matchup, man. Like the Niners, again, as Ben can attest with what they did to the Steelers. I don't think that was on the Steelers last week. That was on the Niners D being a shutdown D. There are 3 of them in the NFC: Eagles, Cowboys, Niners. Those were them. If you're playing those teams, things are going to look a lot worse. So I actually don't want much on the Rams side. Does look like I will still get some amount of Stafford if I stick with the Sims rollout for me, but I think being under the field on those guys, too much enthusiasm. The Niners side, though, I think looks fantastic.
I love the Niners side this week, man.
It's hard to ignore. I know Josh mentioned too, getting a lot of Brock Purdy as his highest exposed QB on the show before us. I'm getting the same, a lot of Brock Purdy here, getting Ayuk as well, or Ayuk, getting Debo, getting McCaffrey, getting a little bit of Kittle. It looks like I even got one share of Juwan Jennings. So I think the Sims are certainly pushing me towards the Niners, the high total here. I guess the Rams have to score a little bit on their side, but I think that maybe comes through Kyron Williams gimmicky stuff. Maybe they can get him out in the flats if the Niners get pressure, but I just don't see, like, I think the Rams are a 1 week wonder. I maybe not even, maybe they'll beat up bad teams, but they are not a team that should compete against the Niners, I think, based on the talent level they have.
I'm with you. And if we're wrong, it might be time for us to reevaluate, right? Like if they come out here, I know it's a divisional game at home, but if they come out and they stay competitive all game with this Giants team that just shit on the Steelers in Pittsburgh last week, I'll look at it differently. But for now, Ben, I can't disagree with Spags. And I think the price points on guys like Debo are pretty beautiful this week.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And, this Niners offense, they just have an embarrassment of riches. So you've got everything that you could ask for. It's not going to be everybody's turn every week, but we saw what Ayuk did last week when it was kind of his turn. There's just a lot of production to go around, and they scheme for Purdy incredibly well. It's hard to ignore that. It's a one-sided game for me, though. I don't have a lot of interest in the Rams.
So this whole, Puka, not?
No.
Okay. All right. Favorite plays from this game, quickly, Ben?
Debo, and then it's a big drop-off, and then probably Ayuk.
Spags?
Purdy, McCaffrey, Ayuk, Debo, and then, some Rams bringbacks, but I don't love them.
And by the way, shout out to you guys for getting us north of 1,000. We're at 1,100 likes. We haven't asked in like an hour. So, appreciate it. That's awesome stuff. Thanks for hanging out with us and being a part of this show every week. Means a whole lot to us for sure. The Jets, Ben, I think $2,700 Jets defense is actually fine. And Brandon Cooks isn't going to play, so that limits the offense even further. I think they are good. I think it's going to be a war of attrition where maybe Dallas wears them down later because they have, good O-line, they have good players, and I don't think the Jets offense is going to be able to stay on the field. Obviously, if Zach Wilson ends up being the best defender for the Dallas Cowboys and puts them in, great field position, that's going to look differently. I don't want anything from the Jets offense this week, though. None of their prices are down far enough.
I don't either. Feel a little suspect saying this, but after you suggest Pittsburgh, it's actually easy to say anything. I think the Jets are the right side in the betting markets, 8.5, 9. I think it's a competitive game, particularly if Wilson doesn't turn it over, but that does not translate to DFS. I have the Jets defense, and that is the only Jet in any of my lineups.
What about Dallas?
It's not that I'm not sold on Dallas. I really respect what the Jets can do defensively.
Me
I
too.
don't think this is a good matchup for. Yeah.
We're not wrong that they're good. I'm saying maybe we're wrong that the Jets offense is so bad that the Jets defense, like I said, a war of attrition where they just wear down. But I think $2,700 Jets defense makes sense.
And I think that with the running backs for the Jets, they can really grind this game down, and it puts a lot of strain on Pollard and Lamb. Great players. It's more of a hero call than I'm not willing to make this week.
What about you, Spags? Both sides of this one.
Yeah, I don't have a single Jet coming up for me. I can't imagine wanting to go there. I agree with Ben that I think they can ugly this one up enough. I would expect them to get close to a cover, if not to fully cover. I think on Dallas' side, you're expecting a lot of efficacy from Tony Pollard and CeeDee Lamb in an offense that is not going to be quite as downfield. So they really have to be good on more of a per touch basis. And I don't know if that's going to be the case. I guess for Lamb, you get a little more consolidation of targets with Brandon Cooks out for his issues, his MCL sprain. I think we'll keep him out at least this week. But it feels to me like a game that I just think it ends up looking like Monday night, where it's maybe ugly, but I guess perhaps one player can produce. CeeDee Lamb can be the fill-in for a Diggs there and maybe get some results. But I don't think he's as good as Diggs. So some Pollard, some Lamb, but not enough to really plant a flag for.
Can we wrap this one up, boys? Washington and Denver. By the way, while you're at it, follow Spags at Chris Spags on Twitter, Ben at JazzRaz DFS, me at Loughy_D or on the X. And shout out to Jordan Klein for producing this one. Before we go, stick around, live before lock. They're taking you all the way up to 1. So be there. Washington and Denver, Spags. 38.5 point total. Wouldn't be surprised if this one goes under again. You get Jerry Jeudy back. Dulcich is on the IR, so maybe some Adam Troutman shares make some sense at a relatively weak tight end position outside of the top guys. And then Washington, though, like, are you buying in the Sam Howell against this Denver defense today is the question. Feel free to hit this one on both sides. I don't think it's going to take you particularly long.
Yeah, I'm getting less than 2% of anybody I'm getting in this game. I think the usage for Javonte and Samaje Perine looked okay. Everything else, though, with Judy coming back in the mix, I don't have a lot of trust for the Denver offense. Washington side that you can make a case for, especially if what we talked about in the beginning of the show, if success that Jimmy G had last week was not because of Jimmy G, but was more because Denver's defense is not going to be as good as it was last year. It certainly was a team that looked really strong, but they have Patrick Surtain and not much else out there. So you could talk me into a little bit of Sam Howell in this spot. Just again, 0.36 EPA per drop back allowed, 0.31 EPA per pass allowed by Denver. So they were allowing QBs to get off on the run, as well as able to produce a little bit on the through the air as well. So not a high focus for me. Like if we're talking ugly teams, I'd rather have the Bucks than the Commanders, but I think you can make the case for a little bit of Commanders here. And but the Sims do not love it. So either listen to me, listen to the Sims. I'm probably going to listen to the Sims.
Ben, wrap us up.
Yeah, Washington won in week 1, but it felt like they lost in some regards. And yes, they're playing Denver, but having to hit the road here, I don't like this spot. I think they're another team that their goal is to not lose the game, in the sense I don't think they want to be overly aggressive, conservative, give Howell chance to be successful. That's not what we want on a 12-game slate. On the other side, though, if I can just talk Denver real quick, you've got Sutton, you've got Williams, you've got Troutman. I think there are, particularly price points that I'm comfortable with, even with an offense that I'm not really getting much Russell Wilson. But I have pieces of Denver, and I do think that those price points give us some room to get there today.
We'll wrap it with this, Ben. Which game stack, or stack for that matter, what wins the Millie today, since you had your premonitions?
Yeah, well, I am planning on winning the Millie. Lamar.
Okay. With a run back for Cincinnati?
Yeah. Well, I'm looking at the Lamar team that I think could win the Millie for me, and yeah, it has Chase in it.
Okay, what about you, Spags?
The data tells me the Niners, maybe the Bengals. My heart says the Indianapolis Colts, of course, America's team once again coming through.
Appreciate you guys, as always. This is a good time. We had about 4,500 people with us a second ago. Don't go anywhere, though. Live Before Lock next. A brand new Hall of Fame segment coming up. Get inducted into the Hall of Fame. Win that free month of your choice. Any package over at Stochastic. Just rock the Stochastic avatar. Finish top 3 in a field of 5,000 or more, and tweet us your wins at Stochastic HOF. Link down there is right there. It's free. You just go there, stochastic.com/avatar. Use it wherever it is you play. DK, FanDuel, Owner's Box. Top 3 in a field of 5,000 or more. You're getting up to $200 monthly package just by finish. It could be the nickel. Doesn't matter. It could be the quarter arcade. We got you covered. And you get inducted into the Hall of Fame. Proud moment for everybody. We'll see you guys back here for week 3. Appreciate you hanging out as always. Peace. Yo, it is that time of week again. We're back. It's the Stochastic Hall of Fame, and we got a new spin on it this time with the NFL season around. We're inducting all of you fine people back into it for the first time. If not, welcome back if you've been here before. All you got to do to get involved, not only to get up here every single Sunday and get inducted into the Hall of Fame, but to win a free month, this is where it changes, of any Stochastic package of your choice, of your choosing. Up to $200 value, like the NFL Sims Max package. $199 value is yours. If you get into the Hall of Fame, this is what you do. Go ahead to stochastic.com/avatar, okay? Download the avatar. Use it wherever it is you play. DraftKings, FanDuel, Owner's Box, doesn't matter. Finish top 3 in a field of 5,000 or more, and tweet us that win with the screenshot at Stochastic HOF, and you're in, baby. That's all it takes. Field of 5,000 or more, top 3, and you get the free month, any Stochastic package of your choice, and get into the Hall of Fame right here, just like all these people who we're about to talk about. Kicking it off today with Jorge. Man, Jorge's been here once. He's been here 4 times more. The NFL Sims are real. 9th place in the Millie Maker DraftKings tournament. I love to see that week 1. a million plus entries in that one, the Jorge. Thanks to the Stochastic team for an amazing tool to help get this nice ROI. Special shout out to Greg Ehrenberg for the great content explaining how to use the tool. Yeah, definitely recommend watching those right here on the channel. Dave Oliver, thank you guys for some late season MLB. You have to use these tools and get with Stochastic. Best ever. $5,000 win for Dave. He's been here plenty of times as well. And our boy Michael J. Shout out to the whole Stochastic crew. This is how you start off week one. $10,000. Yeah, sixth place in the stiff arm, sixth place in the double spy, and a bunch of other wins down there for Michael. Congrats, Michael. And how about that? There's a huge one. Is it Roddy or Rodney? Let's see here. Roddy H61488. Single entry, single bullet in the tennis rally point special, 50K to first, and then took down a smaller one with 600 to first. Huge day for the Stochastic avatar in, yes, the tennis streets for, we'll say, Roddy H. And Jorge, again, not a bad night thanks to the top fighters tool, dipping into the MMA streets. Tied first in the mini-max with a lot of folks, but worth mentioning the ROI thanks to the amazing content and tools. How about that? Yeah, 750, 725 into 3,300. Next up, we've got Austin Larkin at ST. I don't even know how we found this, but he is rocking the avatar, and he did take $100. First place, more than 5,000 entries in that one as well. There it is, dude. Look, $100 win. Come take any package you want. You might be getting a package worth more than double your win because it doesn't matter if it's the nickel, the quarter arcade, the mini max. All of it is the same as long as it's 5,000 plus entries, top 3 or better. And then Chase with a simple at Stochastic HOF, $500. More baseball's not over yet, friends. Here's another baseball one. We got a bunch of different sports going today, and we'll close it out with Gab's gift. Much love to Stochastic for the win. Place first and third in the $1 solo shot using the Stochastic MLB tools on the first day of my weekly membership. By far the best tools out there. Love you guys. First place for 1,000, third place for 300. Shout out to Gabby and everybody else. Welcome. You've now been inducted, and welcome back if you've been here before. Remember, stochastic.com/avatar. Download the avatar. Use it where you play. Tweet your wins at Stochastic HOF and get a free month. Any Stochastic package, whatever the hell you want, up to $200 value there. And we'll see you back here for the next one.
Jordan Klein. Jordan D. Klein as opposed to Jordan Incline. What is going on, everybody? Welcome to NFL Live Before Lock, presented by Owner's Box. I'm Eric Lindquist, excited to be talking through week 2 of the NFL. Smash that like button for us. If not for us, well, for the guys who just smashed ahead of us, hour and 45-minute show, that is not to be taken lightly. Now, you got another 75 minutes coming down the pipeline with me, at Eric Lindquist over on X. And then my friend, Matt_Gajewski over on X. Matt Gajewski, college football extraordinaire. How you doing, my dude?
I'm doing great. Had a lot of fun watching college yesterday. Excited to run it back today with the NFL. I'm excited for this slate. I think there's a lot of really good matchups we can attack. And then for those of you playing large field, some interesting contrarian spots, some pivot spots that I like as well. So really excited for the slate today. How are you, Eric?
I'm good. I have a question for you because this is something that I posed. I haven't been at a social gathering with like a lot of my former acting friends and everything for a long time. Everybody's on strike, kicking it. But either way, I'm just curious because I have not had college football interaction where it was like that buzzworthy. We all watched Colorado State, and like a lot of friends who don't care about football, who are diehard Colorado people. So I have to ask you from the get-go, are you in Oregon, 17.5 points at open guy, or are you a Colorado 17.5 points at open guy?
So that was the look ahead line. Travis Hunter is not going to play. I imagine that's going to move. So we'll see. Without him, I would look at Oregon, but honestly, a total is probably a little better in that spot. We'll see. I think this probably comes in closer to 21, though, now that he's out. He's their best player on defense, and their defense is horrible without him. Oregon might throw for 700 yards.
What a cheap shot. That was absurd.
I know, that sucked. We'll see. If it comes in at 17, you should probably bet Oregon.
Think that that's probably what we should be doing. I'm kind of that same mind. It's been a phenomenal story. Love watching Colorado, love watching what Deion did there. I think that's kind of the public consensus. At least that's kind of what I'm gathering from the public, of which I spent a lot of time with last night. But just wanted to get your take there because college football, you're kind of the guy. If you guys haven't checked out his cheat sheet, his projections that he's doing over here at Stochastic, you're kind of doing it wrong. Screenshot extraordinaire as well. I mean, there's nobody else to be going to in the college football streets than this guy. But also, I trust him in the NFL streets because he knows where absolutely everybody went to college. He knows what absolutely everybody's going to do. He can predict the future. Let's get to it, my friend. We have the actives, inactives here. A couple of biggies. Obviously, the Aaron Jones one, that's official. He's inactive. He will not be playing football. We'll talk about A.J. Dillon and then, of course, Austin Eckler. We've got We've got Josh Kelly that's going to be there. Lead back situation. We'll get into all the ins and outs of that one. We got a surprise active for me. I was thinking about firing up Pacheco, and now we've got CEH active for this football game with that illness against Jacksonville. Anything else that stood out to you in the actives and inactives that the people needed to know about before we dive in?
No, the biggest one was CEH. If you were planning on playing Pacheco or McKinnon, this is just as far as unexpected news. We've had the Kelly news essentially all week, the Aaron Jones news almost all week. So the only one that was unexpected for me was CEH. I thought he was going to sit out, but I wasn't getting a lot of Pacheco or McKinnon anyway, even with his potential absence. So I left my exposures. I have 3 combined lineups out of a whole 150 set with Pacheco or McKinnon. So still pretty much a non-factor for me.
Yep, same. I was contemplating it. It was just something that was on the radar. I think this news just kind of removes him from or anything in that running game for consideration, mainly because we have the cheapies, we have the super ceilings at the top. I like the super ceilings at the top more than I normally do at the running back position, but we'll get into why. You ready to dive in?
Yeah, man. Ready. You?
All right. I'm ready. Producer Jordan Klein there. The best producer in the game named Jordan Klein. I don't think it's remotely close. I haven't used that one in a while. Let's dive in at the quarterback position here at the top, and I'm running the Sims. I think everybody's good with the Sims. Yes. Yeah, we're ready to rock there. The most popular quarterbacks on today's slate: Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, Joe Burrow, bounce back spot, kind of some different ranges in terms of price that we have there. Allen, Mahomes, Burrow. I'm going to ask you right from the get-go, who is your highest owned quarterback in lineups in tournaments this week, Matt Gajewski?
This is a tough question, actually. I'm extremely spread out with quarterbacks. There's not like one guy who's coming in higher than anybody else. The highest one's actually Daniel Jones, but this is not by a wide margin whatsoever. He's barely above 10% for me. So I think this is more about the leverage you could potentially gain with some of the other players on this slate too. Allen's coming in around 10% as well, so I'll be under the field to him, but he's definitely not a guy I want to fade. It's more just when I'm playing Allen, I'm trying to be creative with it and not play a ton of other chalk, if that makes sense. But I think quarterback is deep today. I mean, we've got studs on studs. I mean, Mahomes, Allen, Herbert, and then you have some of the newcomers, Anthony Richardson, Daniel Jones in a bounce back spot. Joe Burrow, Geno Smith in a bounce back spot, Lamar. Like, there's a million really good quarterbacks on this slate. Choosing between them is a little bit difficult in my opinion.
Yeah, it's extremely difficult. And of course, the quarterback I have the most in tournaments right now, you didn't even say his name yet, which is terrifying to me.
Brock Purdy.
It is absolutely Brock Purdy.
I have him. He's like at 9% for me. So
yeah, I have 15% of him right now relative to the field. Again, I'm pretty spread out because 15% to be your highest owned quarterback, that's nothing crazy. But 5,700, there's a lot of reasons why. But starting at the top there, Josh Allen, I wish I could be getting to him here. At this current ownership, it's going to be very, very difficult for me. Him, Diggs, very easy to see that panning out. But is there any unique way? Obviously, you can involve some Kincaid in your life, but is there another wide receiver you'd even want to stack with Josh Allen?
Wide receiver, maybe Gabe Davis. He had a horrific week 1. He might be at risk of getting benched at some point this year if he continues to play that bad. I don't think the options behind him are great. But we also saw Buffalo basically go full-time 12 personnel. They're using Dalton Kincaid basically as a slot receiver, Knox as your inline tight end. So honestly, I like stacking Josh Allen with those two because they offer a very nice discount. And especially Kincaid, it was his first NFL game. Better days are certainly ahead for him, especially when he's playing in the slot. And you're basically taking a slot receiver at 3,300 attached to Josh Allen. So I would much rather play Kincaid than a Gabe Davis at his current price. So the most popular stacking options I have with Allen right now are Kincaid and Dawson Knox. Nothing against Diggs. It's just the ownership on this stack is going to be pretty high. The Allen Diggs stack, you need to be careful with that if you're playing it in large field tournaments. My approach has been to use some of these tight ends to be contrarian with Allen, or play them both together, like run a double stack, Diggs and Kincaid with Allen, Diggs and Knox with Allen is another way you can navigate some of that ownership with the chalky stack.
Yeah, I love that shout out. For me, just trying to find ways of not making it Josh Allen and Diggs is difficult because you're looking for one of those Kincaid and Knox. You're kind of screwed if you pick the wrong one. And then you also have Travis Kelce on this slate. We didn't have, he wouldn't have been on this slate last week in week 1 anyway for the main slate. Mark Andrews back in our lives too. A couple of guys at the top end that make for interesting tournament pivots. And well, there could be a ceiling that shows up here at tight end in a way that doesn't normally. So getting by with 10, 12, maybe not enough here on this slate. I'm in love with Higbee, and we'll talk about him as well later. But just figuring out ways to be unique with Josh Allen, it's a little bit of a problem that I'm trying to decode in the last hour before lock. But what are you doing with Mahomes? Because he kind of has a very similar situation as well. We obviously have weather concerns that exist there, but if it's not him and Kelce, is there anybody else that you might want to pair Mahomes with on this slate?
His pass catchers are really cheap. So you go down and you look at Sky Moore, MVS, Kadarius Toney. If you're buying into the bounce back, he did not play a lot, like just 16 snaps for Toney out of 65, but really good opportunity share. If that rises, Toney could be in play here too. None of them project well, and I think that's just because they're running a pretty nasty rotation. That includes players like Rashee Rice in addition to the ones I already named. But I mean, if you want to throw a dart on like an MVS or a Sky Moore, who got a lot of cardio last week, hopefully he's in a little better shape for this week, maybe you could throw a dart on him too. They would be sort of like pivots off the Zay Jones range. Otherwise, I think the cleanest stack is very clearly Kelce here. And there's enough ways to navigate that, I think. Mahomes isn't coming in super owned. He's kind of just middling. Kelce's coming in decently owned, but he's Kelce. He's the one tight end that can break the slate. And to be honest with you, I thought he would be more owned. So I'm still very interested in Kelce.
Yeah, I'm looking at the boom bust tool too, which we have updated. I'm ready to rock with that here as well. I think there's some interesting stuff happening at the tight end position that we'll get into when we cover that section of the program here. But moving our way down the board, I guess I'll just throw it out there because I'm seeing people in the chat say he's not a running quarterback. He's not going to be somebody that's all that functional. What he is he's 5,700 on a slate where there are so many studs that I want to get to, whether it's McCaffrey that makes for an interesting stack with him. He has cheap. Ayuk's still cheap. Deebo Samuel's still cheap. George Kittle. I think there's a ton of ceiling here in the Rams. I don't think that defense is nearly as good as what we saw going up against Seattle last week on the road. I think they're going to run into problems ahead. And San Francisco just has so many skill players that make for really low-owned stacks on this kind of a slate. I'm trying to run back some Nakua, trying to run back some Atwell, even some Van Jefferson, even though I'm not the biggest fan of his, just because he's the lowest owned of those pass catchers. And if I'm going to have exposure to that, I also have more late swap ability. I can react to how the early games are, and he's at a price point that I don't really have a whole lot of interest in other quarterbacks at in his range, besides Geno Smith for $200 more, who's going to just be exponentially, not more popular, but I think it's just, it doesn't have as many interesting stack iterations for me either, because Metcalf Lockett feels like the path that I'm going to have to be going with that too, unless you want to throw in some Jackson Smith and Jigba. But how are you feeling about my guy, Brock Purdy, today?
Yeah, I'm just under 10%. So coming in above what we project the field at, but I'm not taking any major stands at quarterback. My stands will be elsewhere today. And what I like about Purdy in the San Francisco stack is the price. It's very easy to go in there and get Jamar Chase, Amon-Ra St. Brown, CeeDee Lamb, whoever your expensive receiver of choice are, McCaffrey, if you're going that direction, it's very easy to build a lineup around Brock Purdy. And that's not the same with Geno Smith, where you do have more expensive pass catchers. Lockett and Metcalf come in pretty expensive, unless, to your point, you get a little weird and play Smith and Jigba. His role wasn't great in week one, still not a complete full-time player. About 2/3 of the routes for him, whereas you had Lockett and Metcalf on the field almost every single play. Lockett left briefly to get checked out for an injury, but he ended up coming back. So all of his available routes where he wasn't out of the game, full-time player. And then, I mean, once you get beyond that, the range is pretty bad. Like, I guess one way to be contrarian would be to play Stafford with like Nacua. I don't love the stack. I think that offensive line is going to get absolutely demolished by San Francisco. But other than that, we're talking like him, Jordan Love, Russell Wilson. The only other player outside of Brock Purdy and Geno Smith in this range, like below 6K that I have, is Jordan Love. That game environment's terrible, so definitely don't get crazy with that. This is more a Jaden Reed, Luke Musgrave are going to be incredibly popular if you want to play those guys in a contrarian way. Love is one way to do it. He also has mobility. Didn't show a ton of it in week one, but they absolutely killed the Bears. So at some point, you could sneak into some decent rushing equity with him too, especially with Aaron Jones out and A.J. Dillon being awful at football. We'll see. Not a huge stand for me. He's coming in around 2.5% owned. I'm at 5. So trying to double the field and still be very conservative with the quarterbacks in this range.
Jordan Love, week one leader in QBR in the entire NFL, despite being pretty inefficient, only a 55% completion percentage. But again, 245 yards, missing Watson again, and then now missing Aaron Jones. Think him, Reed, Musgrave. I mean, that's a decent enough cheap combination where you can have your expensive pieces built around them. I don't completely hate that. I think that there's some iterations of lineups I'm playing with. I'm playing 4 big lineups, and then I'm primarily just going to be playing single entry 3 max stuff today. Not going to 150, just so I can focus on the people. But if you're doing a lot of what I'm doing, if you're playing 3 max, if you're playing 20 max, if you're playing anything, that is like a comfortable allotment of lineups, why not check out the lineup generator here at Stokastic? It is our truly cheapest package that you can start off with. If you want to have a sneak peek at our data and what it can do for you, we're taking 10,000 lineups. We have so many iterations of the sims that we are putting together for you and putting those lineups directly into the lineup generator for you to have access to. You have so much maneuverability on DraftKings FanDuel. You have Showdown that you can fire up there as well. It is a phenomenal package. It's a phenomenal tool. You can single stack, double stack with run backs. So many options before you, building contrarian lineups, building so many things. And I have an evergreen piece that's coming out where I'm going to go through the ins and outs of this lineup generator with you. So be on the lookout for that. But all 4K of you guys, if you are there and you're trying to build lineups in a hurry before brunch, before church, before you have to go see your in-laws that you don't like, and you don't have the time to be able to grind and be able to put your lineups together here in the Sims tool or anything else right now, check out the lineup generator because it's going to do a lot of that dirty work for you. So take a look at that. It's in the link below. I think my friend Jordan Klein there as well, producer Jordan Klein, can throw that in the chat. Phenomenal stuff here. Again, I'm looking at some of these lineups, a lot of Cowboys lineups in the defense showing up in that lineup generator today. I think we can all understand why to a certain extent, even though they're not exactly free, But check this out. Our cheapest package we have to start you off with the data here at Stokastic. Anything else at the quarterback position you want to talk about before we jump over to running back?
Got any Baker Mayfield in your life? And we also should probably mention Anthony Richardson.
I'm mad at Baker Mayfield. It just had that feeling of the Thursday night football game where he comes in on like a cup of coffee. He had 2 days in a Rams uniform and he goes out and beats Oakland and knocks them out of playoff consideration. Felt like he just started my Vikings season off on the wrong foot. And I'm not exactly thrilled with the guy. Can't do it today. I just don't think that ceiling is there. If I'm going to go cheap, I'm going to at least have skill position players that could put it up with him there. And I know we have Evans and I know we have Godwin, and I don't mean to besmirch them, but I don't think they're going to get the same kind of upside that we saw in a Tom Brady offense. Obviously, that's not going to be something that I can really fire up. I like Rachaad White a lot at the running back position. I'm going to be running that one back if we can just see those same amount of snaps, maybe be a little bit more effective with it, but no Baker for me. And on the cheap end, I really don't have a whole lot other than Brock Purdy just because of what he allows for me to do a little bit differently. Thought about some Sam Howell, kind of hit eject on that. thought about, getting to some Ryan Tannehill in that Chargers game. Feels like he's going a little bit slept on, sub 5%, but I think it's starting to be pretty efficient. I really don't have anything else sub 6K that's showing up in a meaningful way besides Geno Smith and Brock Purdy.
I think Baker's fine. He actually had a decent amount of designed runs, which was interesting for a guy that's not typically viewed as being mobile. He is arguably the best matchup in all of the NFL today, playing that horrific Chicago. We just talked about them allowing Jordan Love to lead the league in QBR. I actually think he has good weapons. I love Evans and Chris Godwin. It's an excellent pivot off Rachaad White, who's going to be very owned. So we'll see. I still question the ceiling, but he's also 5,100. So this is a sprinkling situation. I'm not making a big stand with Baker by any means, but he's in my pool, and I'm running about 5% of him in lineups, which will be about double the field around there. And then Anthony Richardson's a guy we should mention. I cannot believe he's coming in so low owned. Seeing him come in at 3.5% ownership projection, I think it might be a little higher, but even if it were like 5, I think I want to try to increase my exposure to this. I was anticipating more.
Oh my. This is perfect for me because I had no Baker Mayfield, and now I'm going to have Baker Mayfield, and there's only one person that I could possibly blame for this, and it's you. What a win-win for me. What a win-win.
That's true. We're going down together, Eric.
Yeah. Godwin? No?
I hope so. I love Chris Godwin.
All right. Yeah. Oh, fuck, man. Okay. James Magruder. What's up, my dude? $1.99, catching up on some super chats quick. Zay Jones or Atwell, 5K or under flex, not Kelly. Zay Jones, who? Zay Jones, who? Him or Atwell today?
Zay Jones for me. I still have questions about Atwell's role in the offense. Zay Jones, he's the locked-in wide receiver, too.
Only guy in that wide receiver core who played at a Power 5 conference and did put up gaudy numbers at
Louisville.
There we go, my guy. Anthony
How about Zay
Masilli?
Jones?
I have no freaking clue, dude.
East Carolina.
You're a sick human being and you need help. Anthony Masilli, $1.99, playing a 3-max on FanDuel. Who are your favorite stacks? So looking over at the FanDuel board, we have the top stacks tool. It does a great job of kind of encapsulating the slate. And obviously there's some differences. You're looking for just straight up touchdowns. You don't get the bonuses for yardage. You don't get the PPR, half point PPR. I think that's where I look at like big playability. And I think Buffalo, Kansas City, rightfully sitting near the top there in both rights. I think Cincinnati, we'll see if people do click that button on the Joe Burrow bounce back spot. I think FanDuel is really where I want to do it. Jamar Chase. I mean, how many times have we just seen him take it 50, 60, 70 to the house and just break a slate in the first 5 minutes? Surely that is live there. Cincinnati, 10.1% top stack percentage. Kansas City, 15.4%. They seem to be a little bit cheaper than they should be over on FanDuel. But who stands out to you over on FanDuel today? Gajewski.
I agree with those two. I think Burrow's definitely too cheap. The price on Lamar on FanDuel also surprised me.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of creative ways to play Lamar, especially with Andrews back. So the stack's not going to be quite as intriguing as like a Burrow stack, that's way cleaner with Chase and Higgins. Lamar, it's muddy. You have the 3 receivers that are rotating. You've got Andrews back in the fold. They're moving running backs now that Dobbins is out. But I still think you can play that Lamar stack creatively if you're willing to go to like Flowers or Andrews on a bounce back. So I'll throw Lamar into the mix in addition to the situations you named.
All right. Let's get into the running back position because this is going to be the Wild West of today. Figuring out what cheapies to play, what expensive guys to pay up for. You have options all over the board. You have options in timeshares. You have options of guys who played 80+% of the snaps. I'm trying to figure out which ones I prefer. And I'm going to ask my friend Matt Gajewski because I'm having a tough time deciding. Do I want to jam Josh Kelly? Do I want to jam AJ Dillon? Who are you going to be jamming in this mid-range? Because we have so many options. Who are you rounding out your lineups with the most at running back? Who do you prefer above all?
So this is a range, I think, that comes down to 4 or 5 names. The most popular ones are Josh Kelly, AJ Dillon. Those are injury related. You're not going to see Eckler or Aaron Jones today. Then you've got Rachaad White. Awesome role for Tampa in week 1. Horrible efficiency.
Mm-hmm.
James Cook and James Conner are kind of in this range. I kind of view them sort of differently because they're a little more expensive. But the last guy that really is in this mid 5K range is David Montgomery for Detroit. He's the least owned, but still coming in around 12% for us. The first thing I did with this group of 4 backs, we'll call it below 6K, is I specifically limited it to just 2 of them in my lineups maximum. I do not want 3 soaking up 3 roster spots with a lot of owned risky backs. I think the safest one of this group is Josh Kelly by a wide margin. He completely iced Isaiah Spiller in the preseason, and I think he handles the majority of the work here. I don't think he's particularly dynamic, and he's running into the strength of Tennessee's defense. They're horrible in the secondary, but they're actually very strong up front. But the volume here is going to be awesome, and he can catch passes. So right away, his price-adjusted projection stands out to me, and he's the one I want the most of. Dillon, I think there's concerns here. He's been so bad for a decent amount of time now. I'm not 100% sure he gets all the work. They brought Patrick Taylor up. They have Emmanuel Wilson on the roster. I'm not sure what the split looks like. The game environment's also terrible here. One of the lowest totals in the slate, 2 decent defenses, 2 teams that want to run the ball. I have concerns with Dillon, and I also have concerns with Montgomery. I think he might be the most difficult running back to project on the entire slate. You can look back at week 1 and make guesses, but you've got Jahmyr Gibbs in the fold here. I imagine Jahmyr Gibbs' role ascends. How quickly does that occur? Your guess is as good as mine. Dan Campbell came out and said he wants to get Gibbs more work. That's going to come at the expense of Montgomery. So I view him as very difficult to project. I do not want to get a ton of him. Rachaad White is the other player I'm second most invested in behind Kelly in this range. The role's awesome. He's going to have a much better matchup here against Chicago, which is kind of shocking to say because the matchup against Minnesota wasn't exactly difficult in week 1. But hopefully you can get Rachaad White with even a little bit more efficiency. The other thing I like about him is this is a guy that caught over 40 passes in college at Arizona State. Didn't display it, but if he ever needs to, he should be the clear pass catching back for this offense. Multiple outs for Rachaad White to hit off pay value here, where I think Montgomery and Dillon could be squeezed.
Well, I think you kind of you did a phenomenal job of breaking down pretty much the entire range, but Joshua Kelly, I think he's going to be the most popular. He's projecting out to be the most popular. Don't know why there's a fly in here. But Joshua Kelly, 5K. I know we just ran into this with Jamal Williams in Tennessee. Definite pass funnel, without a doubt. You saw it all of 2022, saw it in the early stages there. Jamal Williams just kept running into the back of his own line there. Needed to get some goal line touches or something to try to salvage that. But Joshua Kelly, I think he'll be decent enough in the pass game. They've had Isaiah Spiller inactive for however many weeks over the course of his pro career here now. In the 19 weeks he's been up, it's just wild to see all of 18 running back touches over the course of 19 weeks in the NFL. That's not ideal for him. And then just nobody else behind him. Whereas that's kind of my concern for A.J. Dillon is just seeing Patrick Taylor and Emmanuel Wilson. I think they probably get mixed in a little bit more. Atlanta, I probably value their defense a little bit more than that when I'm looking across the board. So out of the chalky pieces, I'm definitely the most comfortable with Joshua Kelly. Depending on what you're playing in, I could see him being crazy popular in single entry 3 max type situations too. So at least be conscious of that, where you could feel really, really dumb if he gets held for 12 carries, 14 carries for 45 yards and no touchdowns. Like that is well within the range of outcomes against Tennessee, where you can certainly pass it against them, but they are selling out to stop the run. So I'm at least a little concerned with what I'm going to be doing here in the next 45 minutes regarding him, but I'm on board with AJ Dillon. If he beats me today, he beats me, so be it. I'm going to be well below the field in that regard. Rachaad White, love the shout out there. David Montgomery sitting right next to Breece Hall. Oh, my Iowa State boys, they're all grown up except for one is projected for 8 now, which is sad. That's sad, Matt Gajewski.
Is that which Iowa State boy are you talking about, Montgomery or Hall?
I was saying Hall, just seeing him projected for 8 because Zach Wilson is his quarterback and not by choice.
I know. I feel bad for the whole Jets offense. It really sucks.
All right, let's go to the top because this is where I think it is phenomenal to get some tournament exposure. Christian McCaffrey pulling 16%, Saquon Barkley 12.3% currently in our projections. You have Bijan Robinson, Bijan Mustard there, Tony Pollard, Derrick Henry in a spot where maybe they unleash the beast. You play Derrick Henry when he's low owned. You fade him when he's very popular, unless he's playing the Houston Texans, because that's what we've learned in DFS or something like that. Is there somebody who's catching your eye above the 7K mark? Because I've got 2 guys that I am just jamming, it would look like.
Favorites, Josh Jacobs, kind of playing an extinct role in the NFL at this point, where he's above 80% of the snaps. They're not even getting another running back in there for change of pace work. This guy's handling every possible touch he can, which they're not even doing that with Derrick Henry anymore. Saquon might do that when they're not getting killed 40-0. I'm not sure. I think he probably gets back to that role.
Yep.
But they're not going to do it with Henry. Like Joe Mixon didn't see it. Tony Pollard is closer, but he's still not seeing the role that Josh Jacobs is getting. He's my favorite guy to play in this expensive range today. The other one's McCaffrey. His role was better than we thought. You're going to see Eli Mitchell still siphon off a little bit of work here, but it's not that 60-40 split we saw at times last year. McCaffrey had a very, very nice role. We know he's an awesome pass catcher. With him, the only problem is you kind of have to decide between an elite receiver and him to a degree, or two elite receivers versus one elite in McCaffrey, just because his price really expensive on DraftKings. With that said, I'm still going to be playing him. He's coming in around 10% in my personal lineups here, but Jacobs, I'm above 20%. He'd be the one guy I isolate.
I love Josh Jacobs and I love Christian McCaffrey. Those are the two I'm jamming. Saquon Barkley, I'm around the field on, but my God, the amount of Christian McCaffrey, Brock Purdy I have together today, it could choke a donkey. It would be pretty bad. Josh Jacobs, kind of like my Shrek there, 7,100, or I guess that was Fat Bastard. Either way, Josh Jacobs, 7,100 going up against Buffalo. If I'm going to be lower on Josh Allen, if I'm looking at ways to kind of be lower on that game in general, because the field seems to be jamming it, I am going to be playing Josh Jacobs at 7,100. He is too cheap relative to what his price was last season with the exact same role. He was just too cheap pretty much throughout. He got up to 8,100 at a high point last season. I'm getting him for $1,000 less than that. And I don't think anything has changed, right?
Nothing has changed.
Yeah. So let's just play Josh Jacobs. Cool. That is pretty much all that I have in that section. We talked about a lot of these mid-range guys. Anybody sub 5K that you're like, I can't live without on this slate? Because my guess is your answer is no, but just throwing it out there.
The answer is no. There's a couple to sprinkle, I think. Jerick McKinnon, I'm not going to X out even with CEH back, plays a different role. He'll be the pass catcher, and that's going to should be a shootout here. Jacksonville, you could see lead at points in this game. McKinnon will be in there on some. He also plays a lot near the goal line, interestingly enough. He wouldn't profile as that kind of back, but I think they trust him more than CEH and Pacheco. I've never seen some guy waste so much movement running than Pacheco, by the way. Anyway, there's a couple other somewhat interesting guys like Justice Hill. He should play on third downs for this Ravens team. If they get down to Cincinnati, could be interesting. I see people talking about Roshan Johnson. Deontay Foreman's inactive. I still question how much Roshan actually plays. He looked awesome, but he also played in garbage time last week, like when the Green Bay Packers weren't trying. We'll see how he looks now. I think he's probably the most explosive back they have, but I'm anticipating Khalil Herbert running ahead of him. We'll see. Probably a timeshare to some degree. But yeah, I don't love the pivots in this range. I think it's kind of nasty.
Yeah, looking at the opening week, obviously the Tampa Bay Buccaneers held the Vikings to just 41 yards rushing, best in the NFL. Did you see them run again in week 2 against the Eagles? No, I did not. So I think that's more of a damnation on the Vikings than it is on a praising of the Tampa Bay rushing defense, although they've been stout in days of yore, if you will. So I'm all right. Trying to make something happen there. I prefer Herbert if you're going to take a shot on either one of them. Saw the 9 carries, just 5 for Roshan, but could be an interesting spot where you just get him to pop there. He showed electric stuff in the receiving game. Obviously, the 6 catches, that is nifty on DraftKings.com. So maybe you try to make
a great pass catcher. He's really good at, yeah. So I should have said that.
Out of where?
Roshan, he's in Texas. He's recruited as a QB.
Sure was. Oh, dude, he's very athletic. Cool. I have Zach Moss in my pool. Am I an idiot?
I'm not playing Zach Moss.
I am.
Zach Moss stinks, and he's in a timeshare.
I know. I was saying I'm an idiot. That was kind of the joke.
Well, luckily the slate doesn't lock just yet.
There's still time for me to find God in the next 37 minutes.
You can do it. I have faith in you. I'm trying to go through my lineups and see where I feel like I'm making mistakes.
I think this is the high point of any show that I've ever been on. 4.3K live. I think that's the high point I've ever seen on a stochastic stream. You guys are the absolute best. Can you smash that like button while you're at it? Very small thing, but goes a big, big way for us here on this program. That way we can keep bringing you free content. The guys crushed on the deeper dive beforehand. Josh crushed on the show beforehand. And hey, we're just trying to keep it going here for you. Really appreciate you spending your Sundays here with us at Stochastic. And hey, also Odd Shopper, if you're in the betting streets, this is a great opportunity for you to jump over and try out, yes, our renovated market-based approach in the NFL. We have bets live over there right now. You can jump over to oddshopper.com. Try to sprinkle in, if you're in a legal state, sprinkle in a couple of bets here and there to go with your DFS allotment. Obviously, we're here talking DFS. That's what we're primarily special on. But just saying Houston -1. I'm okay with it. I'd be okay with Zach Moss failing in that regard. But we have a couple of bets sitting at the top of the board now in the NFL for you over at Odd Shopper. Take advantage of that right now. We have some deals going. What promo code Let's Go? 70% off your first month at this given time. 70% off using promo code Let's Go signing up over at Odd Shopper. Market-based approach. We're basically jumping over to other sports books. We're comparing the odds for you and just giving you what we believe to be the best bets across the entire marketplace relative to where other books are putting it, having sharper sports books regarded a little bit higher than ones that we might not regard as high. So you're able to jump over to oddshopper.com and in seconds have some of the best tools, some of the best information to attack sports books today. So jump over there. Really great stuff from the team over at Odd Shopper. Thank you to our data guys. Absolute best to get this thing live here for week 2. Should we jump over to wide receivers here? We're making pretty good time today.
Yeah, if you have a question on a specific running back or someone we maybe didn't spend a lot of time on, feel free to ask, but I'm ready to chop up wide receivers.
Yeah, and speaking of, we'll just jump right into the deep end with Tyler Howe, $1.99 super chat. DK Cash, he's asking. I think this is going to be a very important thing. I think wide receiver cash is far less clear than running back cash is, if that makes sense. Obviously, you're playing Josh Kelly, I think either a Montgomery, somebody else sub 6K. You're probably not going to the top of the board at the running back position for that. That's why they're so fun in tournaments for me. But who do you prefer between Flowers and Nacua and then White and Jones? So I guess that's kind of 2 portions to the question. DK Cash, Flowers and Nacua or White and Jones? So Zay Jones and Rashad White.
I would play Zay Jones and Rashad White.
I think I would too, which is interesting because I'm, Puka Nacua, what a wonderful phrase. I love this guy. I absolutely love him out of BYU. I had to beat you to it, but I don't think he could possibly repeat what we saw last week against the San Francisco 49ers here in this spot. And it seems like the field really expects him to. So want to at least throw that out there that I have my concerns in that regard. I think White and Jones definitely kind of the options that I would prefer in that 2v2. Give me the best game environment or, weather pending with Zay Jones and then Rashad White. I like a little bit more. Zay Flowers just a little bit too thin for me for cash. That's for sure. Even though 50% target share led the entire NFL in week 1. Mr. Cool Cam 97, favorite single entry stack on FanDuel. 1 stack to rule them all and 1 stack to find them, Matt Gajewski.
Baltimore.
That was so efficient.
That is my favorite stack. I'm not lying. I didn't need to think about it. I've actually thought about it a lot for the last 3 days.
Baltimore. Matt Damon. All right. Who are you going to be stacking him with, by the way? If you're on FanDuel, who would you prefer?
Andrews.
Okay.
I would rank it Andrews 1, Zay Flowers 2.
I love the Mark Andrews shout out for FanDuel purposes. Basically, him and Travis Kelce completely underutilized over there. Just want you to be aware of it. Cool.
Agreed.
Yeah, completely underutilized on FanDuel. To wide receiver we go, and we got to start at the top of the board. Stephon Diggs, Devontae Adams in the absolute shootout fest that I hope is not a shootout fest. Because if it turns into last week's Chargers Miami spot where I jammed Miami and that was great, had a little bit too much of I was just above the field on Hill. I was way over the field on Waddle. That could have been really fun if it's Waddle at the end of that game figuring something out for me. But I digress. This week, I am not in on that game that it seems everybody else is going to be. Stephon Diggs, Devontae Adams, not going to dispute that they're great cash options. But what are you planning to do with these guys at the top of the board?
Aren't you playing a decent amount of Jacobs, though?
Yeah, I'm playing a ton of Josh Jacobs.
Okay, so I think you're similar to me, where I'm actually a little heavier on like the Raiders side, but Jacobs is my most owned player in this game. And I mentioned earlier, trying to be careful with Allen and Diggs because they're really owned. When I'm using them, I'll be under the field to both, but it's like I don't want to fade them, but I want to be creative when I use them. So that's limiting their overall ownership. But I have the same take as you, where I'm completely fine with Diggs and Adams and cash. I have more Adams than I do Diggs. I think when you look at just target distributions, removing Jacoby Myers should narrow that a ton for Adams. I would prefer Adams to Diggs straight up right now.
I would too. I'm very much on that side of things. We saw Stefon Diggs, the one serviceable pass catcher, actually much more than serviceable there against the Jets defense. That's going to be tough. Although, kind of problems on the other side of the football, that's for sure. We're going to probably see Stefon Diggs jammed in these type of spots against weaker secondaries. And I'm just going to hope somehow, some way that it doesn't burn me here. I would be okay with 24, 25 out of Diggs. I still think that there's room to smash that with guys in the 30s, because this range, I think, has a dearth of options. So many guys that I want to be trying to fire up just below him. Jamar Chase, we'll see 16%. People going to click it, or people going to click it after last week? We will find out. CeeDee Lamb, it was rain-soaked. They were up by 1 million. We didn't see what Dallas's offense is going to really look like in that opening game, other than like they've got a great offensive line and Tony Pollard is going to be a big part of the offense. But CeeDee Lamb, 7,700, completely written off. I will completely write off Garrett Wilson. I'm okay with that, unfortunately. And then Calvin Ridley. Keenan Allen, somebody that I have a ton of here as well. I'm sure that bodes well for his hamstring, but anybody else that you're pivoting off of these top-end guys for?
I don't have any CeeDee Lamb. I have a lot of questions with Dak as a player, and it's a much more difficult matchup for him this week. I'm a little worried about his offensive line blocking for him and distributing the ball to CD, but Cooks being out should help him. It's a tough click, and there's options, which is really what it comes down to. You have to break ties between these guys. There's like 7 receivers I think you could viably play up here. If you disagree with me and you think Dak Prescott's a good player and can get it done, then I would have more interest in CD. But I'm not playing CD over Jamar, Devontae Adams, Diggs, Ridley. I'd rather play Amon-Ra. I'd rather play Keenan Allen. So he kind of just comes in as the least popular one for me, or I guess the least interesting one to me. As far as the pivots off Adams and Diggs, can we really even call like Ridley a pivot? He'll be really owned too, but he's sort of like a flag plan for me, where I think he should be priced up near Chase and Diggs. Just a stud alpha receiver. He's not coming off the field. What Jacksonville did in week 1 was really interesting. They played way more 12 personnel than I thought, and that squeezed Christian Kirk. Didn't affect Ridley whatsoever. Really good target share here. Just essentially the game of the week against the Chiefs. I'm going to be playing a lot of Ridley, but I'm not going to call him a pivot off these guys.
Calvin Ridley, 8,500 at a high point at the end of the 2020 season. He came back 2021. We all saw that he wasn't right for most of that there. Matt Ryan, the arm kind of disappeared. There were some problems early on in that 2021 season, but I go back to 8,500. I try to look at historical pricing for certain players, and that's a $1,300 discount on the height of his powers there in an offense that had Julio Jones. He's combating Christian Kirk for touches now. That's a little bit different if you ask me. So Calvin Ridley with Trevor Lawrence just keeping that progression, emerging as that star quarterback we kind of all expected him to be at some point. Calvin Ridley, 7,200, pulling less ownership than Diggs. Adams, like pairing him as just kind of like a 1-and-1, running it back with Kelsey. Don't even need to have the quarterbacks, don't need to have anything else in that game. Take those 2 studs and just kind of have that correlation. Hopefully they can get all of the fantasy outcome in that one. But then the next tier, this is where I'm the most exposed. It shouldn't surprise you. If I have Brock Purdy, I am playing a lot of Brandon Ayuk and especially a lot of Deebo Samuel, who you can move all over the field. Good to see him get involvements in some of those like jet sweep motion, like the 2 rushing attempts. He can take one of those to the house at any given moment as well, but would prefer it came from the hands of Brock Purdy, if you ask me. Good to see him targeted. Brandon Ayuk targeted like crazy as well. What was that? 8 targets, super efficient there from Ayuk. Love getting to them in the mid-5s, and they're just a little bit more expensive than some of these other cheap pieces that whether it's the Jaden Reeds, the Zay Joneses, the Puka Nakuas, even. Like, we're talking this mid-range. I do have a lot of these Rams run backs, Tutu Atwell, the most of it, but I love getting to the 49ers in this mid-range. Who do you love getting to between 5 and 6K?
Debo for sure, most owned guy there. You broke him down well. I think you're getting a severe discount against a defense, which I don't particularly fear. I personally think they have two good players. One of them's Aaron Donald. And Debo's going to get the ball. We know this with San Francisco. It's going to be volatile. They have 4 amazing skill position players in Kittle, Ayuk, Debo, and McCaffrey. They all have big games. It's just difficult to predict when. So when we see these price discounts on Debo, I'm very inclined to play him in these spots. Second for me would be Mike Williams. Love this Charger stack. We talked about the pass funnel. Keenan's really popular. You get a slight ownership discount on Mike Williams. He exited last week's game, got evaluated for a concussion. So if you're box score hunting, you might be fooled. He could have had a much bigger game, but missed a portion of that contest due to injury. These are really the only two I'm playing in the, I guess, 5 to 6K range. I have a little bit of Flowers. I guess we can include him. He's 5K flat. Otherwise, I'm not really inspired by the other options outside of Debo, Mike Williams, Ayuk, and Flowers.
Love it. Love it. Love it. Flowers as well. I 50% target share. Every time I look at that, it's just wild. But Mark Andrews has to just decimate it the same way that people were talking about Zay Flowers decimating Isaiah Likely last week. That came to fruition, that's for sure. But I think Mark Andrews definitely is my preferred Lamar Jackson path. I think you said on FanDuel for sure it was yours as well. But Zay Flowers, we'll see if people want to chase that result because it was as good as you could ask for in week 1. Really the only safety valve that Lamar Jackson had in that spot. He gets his big number 1 back here in this spot. That'll be a tough spot. But hey, in tournaments, you're rolling out correlation, not so bad. I got to ask about Mike Williams here as well. 5,700. I took the over on his receiving yards. I did a couple of things where I was like, I think I'm going to incorporate him in 1 or 2 of my big lineups. And as the week went on, I just removed him entirely. I'm not sure what it is about the Chargers offense under Kellen Moore that just rubbed me the wrong way last week. Maybe it was that, he goes from having 6.8 yards per attempt to 6.9 or something last week in week 1. Not a great debut from Kellen Moore here as offensive coordinator. I got to think they step it up in the passing game here against Tennessee. And Mike Williams, big Mike out on the outside. This is one way to do it, is just attack him vertically here. Are you planning to play 11.5% on Mike Williams, or is he somebody you might be looking at fading in this range?
I have 14%.
Okay. There you go.
I understand the Kellen Moore stuff. It's a 1 game sample.
Yeah.
He's been an OC for a while. Early in his career, people loved him. Then the final year in Dallas, people hated him. He does play fast. He's pretty pass heavy. At least most of the time. He's been variable at times in his career, but these are all just good players. Justin Herbert's awesome. I think he'll get this figured out and just not completely neuter the Chargers offense. At least I hope. We'll see. I could be wrong on this. Maybe he sucks and he's going to get fired midseason, but I have a little bit higher hopes.
Thomas Rensburg, $1.99. Ridley, Pitts, or Andrews Gibbs on FanDuel?
Okay, it's Ridley, Pitts versus
Andrews Gibbs.
I'd go Andrews Gibbs.
I would too. Gibbs, again, they said he's going to see his work. It's not hard for his workload to increase because he looked really good and only played 27% of snaps in week 1. So there's ceiling for it there. Maybe he busts off a big run. I think that's going to be how he gets you there in tournaments, is more than likely playing 35 tops, probably 40% of snaps, I would think. And then just takes one to the house, which, hey, on FanDuel, you're looking for those touchdowns. Think he's a better play over there than what he is over on DraftKings. Good luck to you, friends. Again, 4.1K people here live. They want to know who are the cheapies that we're going to be playing here at the wide receiver position. As the week's gone on, we've seen Josh Reynolds start to take off. Didn't see that one coming. Obviously, he had more involvement in week 1 there, but just a cheapie from that Detroit-Seattle game environment. Jaden Reed down there, 3,400, saw a lot of work there. Who are you going to sub 4K the most?
First thing I'll say in this range is if you're running 150 or multiple lineups, don't let these guys kill you, man. Don't come in with 50% Josh Reynolds or Jaden Reed. We're talking about guys that are thin. They just allow you to jam the studs at the top. I'll say the 2 best ones are Josh Reynolds and Jaden Reed, in my opinion. Reynolds probably functions as the wide receiver 2 here. I'm not 100% sure that's true, though. There is some fragility with this. It's Amon-Ra, and then it's whoever you think is 2 between Reynolds, Laporta, and Marvin Jones. Marvin Jones played a ton, played awful. So I think people are just assuming Reynolds works ahead of him. I wouldn't be so quick to just assume that moving forward. With Jayden Reed, he had actually really good opportunity metrics. It was just Romeo Doubs that caught the 2 touchdowns. I think if you just play this season out, giving them the same opportunity metrics they saw in week 1, Jayden Reed has the better season, which is why he comes in a little bit ahead of these guys. But do we want to get to pivots right away? Because I like a ton of guys. And
yeah,
I think
do it.
there's some other ones
I think listing him off pretty quickly, probably not the worst way to go about it. And also, you're the king at that. So go.
So depending on how expensive we want to get, I think Tutu Atwell could be a pivot right off Nakua. They're not exactly too different in terms of price. All of the Chiefs receivers are in this range. So if you're willing to throw darts on Marquez Valdez-Scantling, Sky Moore, even Kadarius Toney, these guys are extremely cheap. Van Jefferson and Romeo Doubs are down here, just direct pivots, 1 for 1. If you're getting off the board a little bit, I like Michael Wilson for Arizona. He played a ton, just didn't have a ton of opportunity. He's a unique receiver in that Arizona offense, the only one with some size, so I don't see him getting squeezed off the field at any point in time. Then you have the Raiders situation, no Jacoby Myers, so you're doing a little bit of gambling here because they didn't really have a clear wide receiver 3 in week 1. It was kind of a rotation between Wilkerson and Renfro, but you'll get a little bit of Wilkerson in some projections here, so I don't hate that. That's most of the guys, I think. If I missed one, let me know, Eric. Or is there anyone you're looking at in addition to those guys?
You crushed the game. I thought it would change. It's staying the same. It was beautiful stuff.
Thanks, brother.
You're welcome.
Nico Collins, too. I mean, I didn't mention him.
Hey, Nico Collins. I like Nico Collins. Robert Woods, the dusty character that is Robert Woods. I have concerns about this Houston offensive line based on things that have transpired in the last. I mean, seeing Tunsil end up out as well, that did not bode well for me here. I think Indianapolis defense, one that I had to click the old ROI boost in the Sims tool. Again, you guys can sign up for that here at Stochastic. But the most important place that you could sign up for now, between now and lock, is Owner's Box. Head to Owner's Box right now. Take advantage of all of these great contests that they have. There's been overlay galore. I know it's nearly, 75%, 80% is all that it filled there in week 1. Jump on in there. You're going to get your first deposit boosted up to $250. So get yourself over to Owner's Box right now. Start taking advantage of some of these contests that people haven't necessarily figured out yet. There are so many ways of playing college DFS that I know Matt Gajewski talks about all the time, but one of them is just the super flex aspect is so much fun for college DFS. Well, it's over at Owner's Box. You have the opportunity to have full on game stacks. You have opportunities to really, really put different lineups together over at their site. So check them out right now, ownersbox.com, or download the app wherever you might be preferring to do such things. But this is an opportunity for you to get in at a site at the ground level as they start building up their user base. And before people start figuring stuff out, we have the tools and content, whether it's Owner's Box in the Sims tool or things of that nature, to help you be a profitable winning player over there right from the jump. So jump over there, use that $250 bonus and start playing at Owner's Box. The best place you could possibly put your DFS money today. Between now and lock, 18 minutes? We got plenty of time to jump over to Owner's Box, be able to fire up a couple of lineups here and there and go on your merry way. You also are going to get yourself a $5 lightning lineup entry and a $5 contest ticket when you sign up now. So great different promos that they have going for you to try out their site. Give it a run, my friends. Owner's Box, fantastic stuff. Proud sponsor here of Live Before Lock. If you or someone you know has a gambling problem, please call 1-800-GAMBLER. Yes, sir. 57% full is it? Go, friends. Oh my gosh. All right. I got to get back on here. I was trying to finish out DK. I am deprioritizing that. That is for sure. That is fantastic. 58%. That's not going to get over 70. There's no way. That's wild. All right. Well, as I do that, to tight end we go. Yes, tight end?
Yes, sir. Heard Travis Kelce and Mark Andrews are pretty good at football, huh?
Love Travis Kelce and Mark Andrews. It's good they're back. Last week was a gross tight end slate. It's playing a bunch of dusty guys.
Your favorite. You love that.
That is my favorite. You're right.
Yeah, it's Dusty Musgrove season. It's things of that nature that are just feels ridiculous. But
amongst those two super ceilings at the top that we finally get on this slate, and positionally, it's not remotely close in terms of projection, what we're looking at between those two and the rest of the field. Who do you have more of?
I have more Kelsey. It's close though,
Okay.
because I am getting to a decent amount of Lamar. But the cheaper stack between the two is Andrews and Lamar. So I can see you going that direction as well. I think it's just a little less predictable in Baltimore with the emergence of Flowers. You still have Odell and Bateman there. So there's more mouths to feed, if you will, in Baltimore that are at least going to compete with Andrews. Most of the big seasons he had, he was completing with grocery store clerks. Travis Kelce is competing with that. So his target share is locked in. Injury
Like
doesn't
it's
scare me.
1965 NBA. Just, when you had a plumber, like you had a day job and then you just like played in the NBA at night.
That's basically who the former Baltimore Ravens receivers were. And those are who the current Chiefs receivers are. So I prefer Kelce. Anyway, Kittle's on this slate too. He has a super ceiling. He just reaches it far less often than Kelce and Andrews. So I would throw him in that bucket. He's the toughest to predict. He could, because of the way he blocks, he has like a 0-point floor, but like a 30-point ceiling, which we see every single year, like seemingly 2 or 3 times. Especially for those of you playing Purdy, Eric, I know you are, so you probably have a little bit of Kittle. I definitely wouldn't rule him out. The other thing that's tricky with Kittle is, and why I think he'll be super contrarian, is Debo and Ayuk are really underpriced. So if you're just running projected stacks, you're going to get more of them compared to Kittle. He's flying really under the radar.
I think my biggest problem of getting to Kittle is that I'm cheering for Tyler Higbee as a run back more. He's 4,600. He's $700 less. I got to think that role goes up for him. 3 for 349. He's had such a good rapport with Stafford when Stafford's been healthy at times. And, well, it's been few and far between all of last season, basically, out for Stafford. I think Higbee sees a little bit of a role increase, especially against a San Francisco team that you're going to need to get the ball out of your hands fast, Matt Stafford. And I think Nakua, Van Jefferson, we're seeing specifically Nakua, but then also Tutu Atwell, they're pulling quite a bit of ownership here. I think Tyler Higbee at a tight end position where you got to play somebody. If it's not going to be Kelce Andrews for the super ceilings, you might as well go to the game environment you have the most of. So yeah, I have a little sprinkle of Kittle, although not as much as you would think considering how much Purdy I have. And then Tyler Higbee, kind of my main run back above 4K. But then Sam Laporta sitting there at 3,900. I'm surprised to see him sub 3% considering that game environment. Lots of great options, sub 4K. Pretty much that's everybody else. Luke Musgrave by far pulling the most ownership. Who are you rostering the most today, Matt?
This is a really gross range. I have a decent amount of Musgrave, a decent amount of Ertz. I think the Ertz is just run backs in that game environment. He had a really good opportunity share. He's just really bad. That was one of the worst performances I've ever seen last week from Ertz. Musgrave, I think he's awesome. We're talking about Higbee. I don't really see there being a difference between Higbee and a lot of the tight ends in this range. Like, what's the difference between Musgrave and Higbee? Irv Smith, Higbee, Chig, Higbee, Laporta, Higbee, the Buffalo guys, Troutman. I mean, Dalton Schultz. Like, a lot of these guys are going to have similar opportunity to Higbee, and I think a lot of them are just better players or in better game environments. Like, Musgrave's probably a better receiver. I think he's the number 1 pass catching option for Green Bay right now. Should have scored a touchdown. Just a complete bozo move, fell down last week. Irv Smith played more than we expected. Just way better team. Chig, I don't love as much now that DeAndre's active. I would rather play Higbee than Laporta. I like the Buffalo guys more than Higbee, just a lot more upside in my opinion. People I think are still concerned about the timeshare here. I'll reiterate this. They technically play 12 personnel on almost every snap because they gave Dalton Kincaid a tight end designation. He's basically playing wide receiver. So they're going to both be on the field almost every snap. I do not think either of them should be projected that much behind Higbee. I don't know. I don't have Higbee in a single lineup.
You don't have Higbee in a single lineup.
Like, he's 4,600. Why would I not just play Musgrave other than ownership? Or like what's the difference between Higbee and Logan Thomas? What's the difference between Higbee and Cade Otton?
He's not in the game. I want to go completely nuclear, Matt. That's the only difference. For me, it's simply trying to find like a contrarian run back that isn't just jamming Nakua at chalk.
Why do you have to run everybody back? Like, I think it's more likely that the Rams are just awful than like you forcing a run back and this game goes nuclear.
Well, shit.
Well, this is a personal take. Like, dude, I'm wrong all the time.
No, you're never wrong.
Well, you should have said that when I didn't cash a single lineup last weekend. in NFL.
Yay! It's okay. It's almost like worse to like barely make anything when you have as many entry fees as what had for week 1, and then it's like you won $200. Like, cool. I could have like gone and I don't know. It was.
I knew my day was over early when my highest stacks were Burrow, Lamar, and I can't remember the third one. It was another awful one.
Yeah, it's all right. The two fights that I stacked the absolute most yesterday, one finished in a no contest and one didn't have a winner. So UFC, not exactly. I need some of that UFC money back because I'm poorer than I was yesterday. That is for sure. Let's round out the tight end position here. Anybody, for me, I know I said it last week. I'm going to say it again. A lot of what I do is I attach tight ends like Tyler Higbee to my game stacks that it seems like I have a lot with the quarterbacks or things of that nature. Love the run back of a tight end that isn't necessarily with your quarterback either, but is in the game stack for the quarterback. And that's been something that's been pretty profitable and goes a little bit underutilized, I think. But maybe I'll reconsider Higbee. I have time, and that's the other part of why I love playing Brock Purdy. Brock Purdy. I have so much time to be able to make these kind of swaps to fit in the pieces that I want for that afternoon window of games. And I get all of the information from, the 1 p.m. Eastern time, 10 a.m. Pacific time window of games to be able to utilize to craft my lineups. And hey, we still have 4 games in that afternoon window. Going to be able to get some exposure to that afternoon slate as well. But anything else you want to add to tight end?
Yeah, I'll clarify my stance on Higbee. You're overinvested to the game. You playing more Higbee than me makes a lot of sense. I'm a little above the field on Purdy, but Purdy spread out to the run backs. Okay. So those are all receivers for me. I don't have Higbee in it. I don't know why that happened. I would guess just a pricing thing when you have the other guys in the same price range and other cheaper tight ends. But anyway, all this to say, taking your approach, I think playing Higbee's fine. It's like playing him as a one-off that I don't particularly love.
Okay. I have so many like double, triple stacks. It's just insane. Oh, Cam Akers to be deactivated for week 2 could be on the trade block. Hi, Kyron Williams.
Who's going to trade for him? The New Jersey Generals?
I was thinking like the
Pittsburgh Maulers.
It's not very nice. Guys, Kyron Williams is the best tournament play on the slate at the running back position now. This came out 9 minutes before
Williams
lock.
Rules. I'm going to have to refigure this out. Jeez, I thought I was set.
Yeah, no, you're not. This is an NBA live before lock. We have 9 minutes, friends.
Yeah, this has never happened, Eric.
I would be getting to Kyron Williams in bulk. It's already the game that I wanted to get to, and Kyron Williams is a piece I didn't necessarily even have. This feels like a spot where who else do they have? No, they have that Rivers character from the preseason. What's his
name?
Ronnie Rivers. Ronnie Rivers was in the preseason.
Pride.
He made the 53-man roster.
That's shocking.
Oh, this is wild. He's 5K perfect off of Kelly. I will say I prefer Kelly still, but that is in terms of projection over Kyron Williams. I'm saying Kyron Williams is going to be drastically lower owned. Drastically.
Yeah, I mean, Kyron Williams can do it all. He's a good pass catcher. He's just not explosive.
He is 5K. Her name is Chastity.
I don't know what that's from.
It's Wedding Crashers. I love you. I was going to say, I haven't played the Guess That Movie game one time with you today, and there's a reason for it. We don't have time for it. Matt.
How much Kyron are you going to get in?
I'm trying to run something quick for the people so I can at least give them some informed numbers.
Same. I just got mine back and it had 23%, which it's so hard to like process this information right now.
So here's what I'm doing. If you guys are playing along with me at home, I'm going into the Sims tool. We have the pre-contest simulator. I'm going to the contest generator first, and I'm just boosting Kyron Williams. I'm going to just boost him, give him the boost of ownership, just so he gets, a little bit higher. But technically what I'm doing is I'm running those lineups against each other. I almost want to just keep him the same. And then when I jump over, so now I'm going to simulate lineups because we have the up to 5,000 that you can do here today. I'm going to the pre-contest simulator. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to jam his ROI boost. So as we go to Kyron Williams, who I had 0% of before this news, even in a game environment that I wanted that much, I'm going to be a little bit extreme. And I'm going to go like 40% ROI boost, which is probably too much, but I just want to see what that does to my allotment of 5,000 lineups, because mainly I don't think I was running with 5,000. I don't even know how many Kyren Williams lineups were going to show up in that period. So there's kind of a different thing to figure out here with the Sims as we're working through it in the moment. If you're on an optimizer, you can hard cap him depending on what optimizer you're using. You can have things in that nature. I know our data is going to update as fast as possible to help everybody take advantage of this, but it might not be available for the afternoon, not just here, but everywhere. If you're listening to this show, the best thing you can do is get yourself to more Kyren Williams in some capacity, whatever you think that looks like relative to your risk tolerance. Does that sound good, Matt?
That was beautifully put.
All right. I want to get everybody a number on what I'm going to do here in my 80 lineups. And obviously my 4 that I built out by hand that are the really big ones that I'm the most worried about today, I'm going to take a specific look at them, probably just because I have 2 of those big lineups, Brock Purdy lineups. I have a Geno Smith lineup, and I have a Lamar Jackson lineup. Those are my 4 big ones that I'm rolling out today. I'm just going to make sure that I have at least one of those that has Kyren Williams up at the top at the RB. And then there's obviously the chance I can still mix him into a flex here, but I think I'm going to prefer just on a slate like this where there's a lot of cheaper pass catchers. We'll see what ends up finishing up here in the Sims for me. Let's go. All right. I'm going to take my top 150 just for the conversation piece of this. This is an important part of the slate. We'll talk about defenses and get ourselves over here. This is a total overreaction. No, it's not. This is a dude who's going to play, I would assume 75+% of the snaps immediately at 5K.
Overreaction. I disagree.
I disagree too. I'm reacting, I believe, appropriately to what I want people. All right. I got 17% of him. I'm okay with that for right now. I'm okay with that.
I got 23. I think I'm okay with that too.
Yeah, 17%, nothing crazy. But again, we're going from a guy that I had 0 of and the field had basically 0 of. There's no doubt in my mind he's going to have positive leverage compared to his expectations and his projection and what we expect his workload to be. So there you go. Enjoy that. That is what the Sims can do for you, friends. We're able to work through this live, kind of solve the problems of how we're building out those lineups, because the field, I don't think is going to change their lineups all that much. So I'm just simply doing it after the fact in the pre-contest simulator. I'm going to boost him with that ROI, get to an appropriate level where then I can take those lineups, utilize them. Let's party. Let's round ourselves out of here with defense, my friend. My 3 highest owned defenses. I'm just going to list them off for the people. Cowboys, Jets. So from that entire game, I hope it's a slogfest. That'd be great. And then to round it all out, the Colts, which is weird because I have a Houston -1 ticket, but their entire offensive line is decimated. It is not even there. I don't know what CJ Stroud's going to look like. He was a late add to the injury report on a Friday after practicing in full Wednesday, Thursday, ends up being active for this game, but how healthy? Maybe there's something where he's somewhat debilitated by that. I don't know. But I'm willing to embrace that variance in a spot where they're completely unknown. 3,400, 3.9%. Give me some Colts defense. Who are your 3 highest owned defenses, Matt Gajewski?
Sorry, I'm trying to get my CSV. They are Tampa Bay, Arizona, and Washington. I don't put any thought into defense. I don't even know how that happened.
Friends, I'm going to do the Caesars thing so I can get you back to your lineups. You upload your stuff, and then we'll round it all out. Have a little kumbaya. We'll have a little fun. Get ourselves the heck up out of here. Caesars Sportsbook, friends, you bet $50. You're going to get yourself $250 in the form of 5 $50 bonus bets when you sign up for them at the link below. It's as simple as going to Caesars Sportsbook for the first time if you've never signed up there and getting exposure to an awesome sportsbook where you then have access to shop for the best lines and you get an awesome deal to boot with it. $50 gets you $250 in 5 $50 bonus bets, one immediately that hits your account. And then if you sign up here on Sunday, Monday, there'll be another one that shows up, as well as the next 3 subsequent Mondays. So that is $250, 5 $50 bonus bets just for signing up at Caesars Sportsbook. It's only if you're 21 and over. And if you have a gambling problem, please call 1-800-GAMBLER. Matt Gajewski, did you get your lineups in?
No.
Dear God. All right. I'm going to just work through some of the pieces that we know. Joshua Kelly, 5K. Fantastic play. I think the Sims still going to be somebody who's showing up for me there. Yes, you have now Kyren Williams as a decent 1-for-1 pivot, but I'm not looking them as pivots. I'm looking at them as guys that you can play alongside each other. So that's going to be something that I'm keyed in on a little bit here, a little bit. I don't need a lot, baby girl, just a little bit. I do not like EJ Dillon as chalk today. That was one of the pieces that I'm happy to be undercutting. Josh Jacobs, phenomenal tournament play up there north of 7K, playing a lot of him and McCaffrey, especially because I'm into that game environment. I'm using Joe Mixon as a run back in Lamar Jackson and Mark Andrews stacks. I think that's going to be a contrarian way of doing that big lineup that I talked about. That's one way that I'm trying to get a little bit different from the field. Think that somebody who's playing all of the snaps and all the land talked about how Samaje Perine last week. I think he's decent enough at football. We saw him succeed there in Denver right from the get-go, cut into that third down timeshare there for last season, was in the game in important moments with Joe Burrow. Find myself getting to Joe Mixon, though, because there's just nobody else that they trust behind him. Chris Evans, just kind of mixing in on third down work. He ended up out for this game. I think that's another grade up for Joe Mixon. So wanted to throw him out there in the last couple minutes. Anything you want to say to the people as we get ourselves the heck up out of here, my friend?
I got my CSV in, but thank you guys for being here. Crazy lock. Hopefully we can capitalize on this and we don't get a complete face plant from my Notre Dame boy, Kyron Williams. But yeah, I just appreciate you all being here very much. I want to say thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
That was a fun one. That felt like NBA Live before lock. That's for sure. That's coming up sooner than you would think. That's like a month away, Jordan Clyde. Get excited, baby. NBA's back. Kawhi is in the building. It's going to be beautiful. That's his boy. That's his boy. I guess Ish Wainwright also confirmed your boy. Feeding him red vines courtside. Tough life you live, Jordan. Tough life. Guys, thank you so much. We had over 4.4K live here on today's stream. You make it possible. Hit that like button. We'll continue bringing you the heat every single Sunday. I actually will be gone next Sunday, so enjoy that one. But Matt Gajewski, any final words for the people as we get out of here?
Enjoy the games. Thank you for being here. Hopefully one of you wins something big, or I do.
I'd prefer it was me. Owner's Box, friends, check them out over my shoulder. Great stuff. That's all. Let's get ourselves out of here. Watch a little YouTube TV. Thanks, Sunday Ticket, whatever. Until next time, I'm Eric Lindquist. Best of luck in the NFL streets today.